just keep pressing the unmute button until it finally kicks in. Hello, friends and bees, and friends who are also bees. Captioner got so close there. It got friends and bees, and then it went are the sea bees, which is close enough. Hello, welcome to this week's Indie Thursday stream. This week, after a long break, we are going to be continuing Higurashi When They Cry, Matsuribayashi. I'm gonna have a coughing fit, but only for a few seconds. I'll be extremely honest, I have completely forgotten everything that was going on in this game. I'm very glad that we got through the intro and no further, because I have no idea what's happening. So we're essentially going to be playing it not blind per se, but definitely with the dulled vision of somebody who hasn't played this game for about 6 weeks, much to their personal annoyance. But I think we should swap over to the GP. Give it a second to kick in. There we go. Let me just make sure that my buttons are correct. And let's just hop in, shall we? And load up the end of chapter 4. If you hear any slapping noises, it's me having a drink, because there's a lot of reading to do in this in these games, and I need water to keep me going. Welcome to the world of Higurashi Chapter 8, Matsuribayashi, Fangs. In this world, you'll be able to recreate the story from Hanyu's point of view. Your objective is to create the June 1983 ideal to you. You need to collect many different fragments to make that possible. However, Takano's conviction is very strong. To overturn it, you will need a lot of effort and a lot of fragments. I warn you right now, it'll be a slow and painful process. Hanyu went through it for over 100 years, and she even had to stop and give in to fate. Defeating Takano's conviction will not be easy. The trial in this world will put you through as much pain as Hanyu had to endure. You may surrender, just like Hanyu did, after being emotionally worn down by the constant repetition of the worlds woven by countless fragments. When you feel like surrendering, you can end this game any time. But if you do, the worlds revolving around your friend's fate will be limited to Onikakushi through Minagoroshi. By forgetting about this world and uninstalling this product, you'll finally accept death, just like Rika did. Absolutely screenshot that. Your ideal June 1983 can be created by putting together 50 fragments that are scattered all over this world. To connect these fragments together, you'll need the right ones. There are 50 of them, which may be dizzying. However, this world isn't that merciless. To ease your pain, there'll be a little help for you. When you choose the wrong pieces, your only ally here will give you a sign that it's not yet time to put those fragments together. As long as the sign remains, you won't be able to connect them. You might as well go look for different ones. After you put other fragments together, you might be able to connect the ones you couldn't put together earlier. When that happens, she'll let you know. Let's put those fragments together. Then you'll be able to join the other ones too. When you connect all 50, they'll become one big fragment. There you'll find your ideal June 1983. So under Steam Guides there is a guide for this, but I'm not going to look at it. I'm going to at least try and do as much of this as possible through guesswork and memory and thinking. That's when the long-awaited Matsuribayashi will begin. Before you peek at each fragment, why don't you line up all 50 of them first? Most of them require other fragments, so there are only a few you can actually look at. Let's try to find those first. To see the conditions for connecting fragments, just point the cursor at them. Before anything else, let's find the ones you can look at without any conditions. This will be an extremely long and difficult trial. Let me tell you again, Hanyu challenged this for over 100 years and give up on it. If you believe in miracles in the same way your friends do, even if you don't live in the world where they live, if you believe in them, welcome. Welcome to the world of Higurashi Chapter 8, Matsuribayashi.
Come on in, Chuck.
Come on in. Hello, Final. Thank you very much for the raid. It is very much appreciated. Whoops. Let me pause the dialogue here. How are you, Final? I hope you are doing well. Let me see if the thing that I'm trying to do works. The answer is that it doesn't. Hello, Eris. How are you? There we go. Ooh, ESO. I've heard about the new changes that ESO is getting. It looks good. Unfortunately, I can't comment because I don't play it. Hello, Captain Chibale. For people coming from Thionel stream, 'tis me, Amochi. I am a variety streamer. I stream 4 days a week. At the moment, I am playing Higurashi, Chapter 8, which is the last chapter in the main arc of this story, so will contain spoilers probably for the rest of the game. It's very different to the other game, so I'm intrigued to see how it goes. I have not been able to play any games for a while because my computer's been broken. So I'm still getting back into the swing of like streaming and gaming and everything else, but yeah. Ooh, nice. Oh, I'm glad to hear that, Thionel. I'm glad that it's well, thank you, Eris. It's nice. I'd missed it. Missed having my computer as well. It's finally back and it more or less works, which is incredible. It's not taped together, which is also really great. Right. June, created by Takano, is nearly indomitable. She's gathered many people whose powers are beyond the average person to her side, her backers being at the centre of national authority. Even if 100 dice all rolled once, there wouldn't even be a chance to defeat her. In other words, a miracle is the only way forward. A miracle happens only when everyone combines their strength, and you are one of them. Are you ready? I'm more than ready. The key to a long journey is not to pressure yourself too hard. Well, let's take it at a light pace. I'll work while drinking my usual wine. Shall we begin? We have all the time in this world. So the concept of this part of the game is that you are putting together the ideal timeline in order to get past all of the fuckery that's happened in the other timelines. You have obtained new fragments. I am actually going to hit save, just in case, huh? Right, so okay, hang on. Still, I'm not entirely sure how this works, so required. Set up. What's required? Okay, so we have to start with this one. My name is Toko Hojo. I've forgotten all of my my voices, so I apologise for that as well. But Hojo is my current father's family name. I was also Satoko Hatake, Satoko Yoshizawa, and also Satoko Matsura because of my previous fathers. I'm still not used to being called Miss Hojo. If someone calls me Satoko, then I know that person is talking to me, because Satoko is the name I've been using since I was born. I don't understand why my mother keeps getting married and divorced. If she's going to get a divorce, why does she get married? If she's married, why does she get a divorce? I've asked her before, but depending on the situation, her answer's different. When I asked her when she was married, why she was married, she got angry. I hit the wrong button there, sorry. When I asked her after she got divorced, she cried. I don't understand the meaning of marriage, so I have no interest in drawing pictures of a bride in a wedding dress. I don't think I'll ever get married. I don't want to keep changing my child's last name. My teacher once asked if I liked my mother. I think it was when I was in kindergarten in Okonomiya. That was a very difficult question, because sometimes I loved her very much, and sometimes I hated her very much. I couldn't decide. Stoko has it really rough. I feel so bad for her. When my mother was nice, she smiled all the time. She made us happy. She thanked me for being her daughter. When my mother wasn't nice, she frowned all the time. She treated my brother and me very poorly. She told me I should never have been born. My teacher asked me if I liked my father. That was a very easy question, because I always hated him very much, no matter who he was. The new fathers always treated me nicely at first, as if I was their real daughter. They always told me I could think of them as my real father, but they couldn't be my real father. Besides, I didn't even know my real father's face. How could I call them my father? I couldn't. That was disgusting. Right before divorce, my fathers always became very irritated with me. They treated me like a cockroach. They told me they didn't have the money to feed me, they threw things at me, and they locked me out on the veranda. I should probably put like an abuse and violence content warning on the top here, like just in case. Canon typical mentions of abuse and violence for this whole game. If it gets bad, I'll put the content warning in the stream title. I always forget about it until it pops up, and then I'm like, oh yeah, I should warn for this. I was told I could forget about them because that was all in the past. I think it was a different teacher from a different school. Maybe that's true. Because ever since Hojo became my father, my mother has been smiling. I haven't seen them get into a fight, as I've seen happen just before a divorce. They have little arguments here and there, but those don't lead to a divorce, and they always make up. But I'm sure they'll get a divorce sooner or later. Then it'll be the same old stuff with a family court, divorce settlements, a night flight, and child support. So who knows how long this Hojo will be my father. That's why I don't even feel like calling him that. He also treated me well at first, but when I didn't call him father even after he asked me repeatedly, he became irritated. They'll get a divorce soon. When my father gets into this mood, a divorce is on the way. After a divorce, it's my mother's turn to be irritated with me. Then she'll tell me she shouldn't have had me, or she can't be happy because of me. Why is my existence causing problems for my mother? I asked my brother and he told me. If you have children, it's not easy to find someone to get married with. To my mother, remarriage is a very important job, so I can understand having children around will cause problems. I think I finally understand the reason why I'm a nuisance to her. I asked my brother something else. Why are children hated by new fathers? Well, that's simple. That's because family members all have different roles. A mother's job is to love her children. A father's job is to love the mother. That means I'm a nuisance to both my mother and my father. My brother is even more mature than me, so they don't look down on him as a nuisance. But maybe I am. No, I'm definitely a nuisance. So now I know. Both my mother and father want me dead. But if they kill me, they'll be caught. But that doesn't mean they won't kill me. If I were to look down the cliff, and if no one was around, my mother and father would push me off for sure. My father has become abnormally nice to me recently. He started to act that way ever since I made the fake call. I know for sure that it's just part of a plot to kill me, so I won't let them trick me. I'm sorry. Someone's infected. Paranoia. I'm sorry is repeated. In any other game that I ever play, if they start repeating dialogue like that, my brain just goes, someone's infected. They've got the syndrome. Lately, when I listen very carefully, I can hear a voice apologising. The voice sounds similar to mine. Her mother must be telling her that she shouldn't have been born. I'm sorry. But I won't apologise like that. I'll live. I'm going to strike back. I'll kill before I get killed. I'm sorry. Okay. So we've got that one. These two are further along. Oh, this is another, like, way that we can go. Okay, well, we'll start with the Toko story then. Okay. Green carrier. Station order. Operation. Continuation. Okay. Let's go with this one next, I think. This fragment can't be connected yet. Never mind. Satoshi. And nope, shit. Not doing too great here. Okay, right. Bear with me, sorry. Oh gosh, I'm hitting every bloody... Every wrong tab that I can hit right now is what I'm hitting. I also keep getting distracted by the whispering in the background. Okay. So we started with Toko. Saki. Okay. So, something that requires Toko's introduction. Where's the... Okay. So here's the problem. I was like, I'm not going to look up a guide, and then I did. And it said this one. Okay, looking for the Hojo siblings. That's who we're looking for. Okay. Stagnated. Hojo, some responsibility. Medicine is required. Joe. I'll just keep like hitting hitting once until I get the right one. Sorry that I'm just sitting here, like, chuntering to myself. I'm confused. Conflict between Hojo family and Sonozaki family, but how would that happen? I wonder if I can start with another one. So the dam construction will bring in new jobs and revitalise the local industry. That's not what we're saying. Who the hell gave you permission to build a dam here? You squeeze tax money from us and this is what we get in return? Who do you think pays your salaries, huh? Look, we're trying to explain to you. I wonder if I have to, like, start all the ones first and then... We don't want to hear your excuses. We want to know when you'll stop the construction. Ah, you're useless. Bring the Minister of Construction here. He'll get to the bottom of it. Shut up, you yuppie. Hey, you're paid with our tax money, so why the hell are you talking down to us from up there? Come down here and let's speak face to face. The auditorium is filled with angry shouting. The sign at the entrance says, Hinamizawa-zan Construction Explanatory Meeting. Every time the official on the stage tried to say anything, the citizens packed into the room silenced him with their shouts. Trying to ignore them, the official continued to explain the pros of the dam, but that just further infuriated them. Between the stage and the citizens, there was an open area where a police squad was standing by. If they weren't there, the citizens would jump onto the stage and start a riot. I'm watching all this from the back of the auditorium. It's obvious to anyone they're being swallowed by their anger. They become filled with a bloody red rage. The anger that came from a certain purpose becomes a purpose in itself, and it creates a vicious cycle, where anger leads to more anger. Anger is a necessary emotion for humans. People face many difficulties in their lives. Anger gives them the motivation to fight and conquer such difficulties. Therefore, anger is an essential part of life itself. So I'll never reject anger itself. However, anger like this, that goes far beyond normal, makes people forget their purpose. That is no longer an essential part of life. As the blood rushes to their head, a person can't even remember what they've done. They go out of control. Such emotions are very painful, sad, and difficult to endure. I can clearly see the villagers who live alongside us turning into demons. I understand the rules of the human world. The power of an individual can't be compared to the power of the government. To be able to fight, an individual needs to become part of a larger, unified power. But to steer that unified power in the right direction is extremely difficult. The cycle of anger leads to more anger. Not anger that helps you live, but anger that exists only for anger. It's just like being a demon. And this emotion is capable of violently rousing us from our long, peaceful slumber. Everyone is immersed in their own anger. We lived peacefully with the villagers while we slept quietly. Yet now we've awakened, and it's like the world is trying to return to that age when demons were said to arise from Onagafuchi Swamp. I hit the wrong button there and accidentally opened Steam Overlay. So the implication I'm guessing here is that Hanyu is one of the demons, but the demons aren't necessarily bad, just... I keep shouting at everyone to get them to calm down, but my voice can't reach them because of the vicious cycle of anger. Even so, I'll continue shouting, hoping even one of them will hear my voice. Because if I don't do anything, the demons may awaken. Possibly she's a spirit of somebody who, like, sealed them. The demons that went into a deep sleep may reawaken because of this commotion. Then, all of a sudden, the atmosphere changed. Looking up, I saw that the anger exchange between villagers and those on the podium had devolved into a confrontation between the villagers themselves. What's going on? Shut up. Those are your reasons, not ours. Don't pull us into this, you old hag. Who the hell cares? The hell you say, you bastard? Hey, do you know who you're talking to? This is Mizurio. You got some nerve, huh? Who the hell do you think you are? Shut up. Sonozaki? So what? I'm Hojo. Get your goons away from me. Hey, Hojo, how dare you say that you want the village to be submerged? How much are they paying you? Shut up, you old geezer. Listen, there are plenty of poor people in Hinamizawa. Not everyone is rich and all over the fields like has fields all over the mountains like you do. I see. I did a stupid. I'm satisfied with the compensation from the government. They're even offering to provide us public housing. Yet you're ruining everything, you assholes. Don't pretend you're the same as us. If you want to fight with the government, why don't you fight by yourself? Then who's going to pay? You? I'm going to do that. You? I'm poor and have 2 kids at home. I was planning to start a new life by leaving here in peace after getting compensation from the government and finding a job elsewhere. But you? Since when did you represent me, huh? Do you think you're that important or what? Hey, Hojo, how dare you betray us? Then get out. Get out of this village. Sure, I'll be happy to, but you're going to pay what I'm entitled to, right? You're going to pay me every yen of the compensation I was going to get from the government. Even if I wanted to leave the village, I don't have the money. If you're going to pay me, I'll leave straight away. Hojo was right. There are plenty of residents who are willing to leave. You 3 families shouldn't drag us into this. How is this? Who just spoke? Come on, who was it? If you want to stay, then stay. We have the right to leave, so don't interfere. That's right. Back the hell off, you damn Sonozaki hag. Of course we'll compensate the people who support the damn construction plan. We most certainly will not steal the land from you. Shut up, government dog. You trying to divide the village? Die, Hojo. You don't deserve to breathe the village air. Hold your breath and suffocate to death. Screw you, old hag. I'll murder your ass. Step up front, you damn hag. Hey, stay out of this, you fat pig. Very good. That was very good, Hojo. I haven't been this pissed off in so very long. You get what you deserve. Look forward to it. Get him, Hojo. Government has to provide us new jobs, shelter and compensation. Hey, stop this violence. All of you, stop it. Like hell, bring it on. Come and get some. Everyone is being tainted with a bloody red anger, and I can only watch. The least I can do is to apologise for the tragedy that is about to happen. I'm sorry. Oh, I don't like it that it's Hanyu as the one doing the apologising. This is how things started. From this day onwards, the Hojo family and the Sonozaki family will wage a feud against each other, and the Hojo family will become ostracised within the village. This marks the beginning of Satoko and Satoshi's lives of tremendous hardship. The fact that Hanyu is the one who starts the apologising really unnerves me, given that it's like a heavy symptom. Okie dokie, so now I should be able to do this one. There we go. The Hojo family is very well known for going against the whole village during the dam conflict. Both the husband and the wife were rather aggressive, and they fought a fierce battle, especially against the Sonozaki family. Although the whole village treated them coldly, the husband and wife didn't really care and kept on fighting. In a way, they were extremely strong-willed people. I'm sure their children had to go through a lot because of them, though. Satoko and Satoshi were treated coldly by the villagers as well. In addition to that, Satoko and her stepfather didn't get along, so their stress levels must have reached their limit. Because I'm the director of the local clinic, a rather respected member of society, people usually tell me lots of things, so I was aware of the treatment they were receiving even before I met them. I met Satoshi first. Satoshi came to the clinic because he felt ill from too much stress. He must have thought he had a cold. When I examined him, he even told me that. But hearing his repeated sighs and seeing the exhausted look in his eyes, I knew right away it wasn't a simple cold. Medication would heal his symptoms, but that'd only be a temporary measure. The only way to truly cure him would be to change his living environment. Easier said than done, eh? Said all of us with chronic anxiety. Exactly. Easier said than done. Okay, sorry. He was surrounded by tangled and complicated relationships with the village and his family, so just resting for a few days and taking some medication wouldn't do it. Time was the only thing that could ease off the cold treatment from the villagers, but we were talking a very, very long time. That's why I felt I had to be their first ally in this village, so I could rescue them. I couldn't do anything about a stressful environment, but I could try to diminish the anxiety. So I thought the best way was to teach him how to vent his stress, and playing sports is the best way to do that. So I asked him to join the junior baseball team that I coach. As a researcher, I devote most of my time to Hinamizawa syndrome, but I too need to do something else to relax. I used to play baseball, so I decided to coach the local kids team. After a while, the children of Hinamizawa started their own baseball team, and somehow I became their coach. Doctors can't provide health just by giving medication. You need a sound mind and a sound body. That's where I'm failing. I believe health can be maintained through sports as well, but our team needed more people, so I thought of asking Satoshi to join. Being a bookworm, Satoshi wasn't interested in playing sports. He wasn't sure how joining the baseball team would help his situation. I didn't need to go on and on about athletic medicine to explain why sports help people become healthy. I just wanted him to experience it himself, to realise how great it feels to play sports. I think he realised it gradually. He was reluctant until the very end, but he attended all of the team activities and games. As I saw Satoshi slowly regain his liveliness, I realised my plan worked. However, if Satoshi was under that much stress, then Satoko, who lived in the same family, must have felt the same way. Unfortunately, I didn't think of her back then. So when Satoko was carried into my clinic as a patient, I regretted doing nothing about her even while knowing the situation. As Satoshi recovered under my guidance, Satoko was left alone in a stressful environment. Also around that time, there was an incident bad enough to make Satoko collapse. That was, of course, her parents' deaths. The day of the Watanagashi festival was a very uncomfortable time for the Hojiro family, because although it was a village festival, it was also a day to celebrate victory over the dam construction project. It's understandable that they'd plan a family trip around that time so they could leave the village. Satoko's parents fell off the cliff at the park they were visiting. It happened on such an unlucky day. Because it happened on the day of the Watanagashi, people said it was the curse of Oyashiro-sama. I've just had the thought. In the previous fragment, Satoko was scared that her parents would push her off the cliff. As part of her paranoia, I wonder if perhaps she was the one who pushed her parents. And people labelled the Hojiro family as the one that was cursed by Oyashiro-sama. The parents were given the cold shoulder by everyone in the village, so with their parents gone, Satoshi and Satoko should have been freed from that, but unfortunately, the accident happened on the day of Watanagashi. That's why the members of the Hojiro family continue to be shunned. Satoko was the only one who was at the site of the accident. Satoshi didn't go on the trip because he had an event with the baseball team. Therefore, the police mainly interrogated her. The detective, Mr. Oishi, suspected an act of organised crime within the village, so with Satoko as the only witness on site, he drilled her with questions. She was as stressed as Satoshi, perhaps even more so of course she couldn't take it. During the interrogation, she began to wheeze and gasp for air. The anguished look I saw on Satoko's face when she was carried into the clinic was tragic. It broke my heart just to imagine what she had to go through. Coach, is Satoko okay? Yes, don't worry. She's a bit confused, but only temporarily. That's all. May I see her? She finally fell asleep, so I'd rather not wake her up just yet. Let's just let her rest for a while. Maybe it's a good idea to have her stay here for a few days too. Don't worry, I'll take good care of her. Thank you. I know Satoshi is a great big brother who truly cares about his sister. He empathises deeply with her. In other words, Satoshi's worries and stress were reflecting Satoko herself. Maybe I shouldn't say this, but while Satoshi was, of course, sad about his parents' deaths, he may at the same time have been a little relieved that they were gone. I certainly am. His sister wouldn't have to be driven to a corner anymore. Unlike Satoshi, Satoko didn't have the social skills to get along with her stepfather. So putting her mother aside, I was certain that losing her father, the greatest cause of stress in her life, would bring great change to her home environment. But I couldn't believe what happened next. The two were sent to live in an even worse environment with her aunt and uncle, although at that time I was rather optimistic, thinking this new environment would be better for the siblings. So this is Volume 3's story that we're running through at the moment. Okay. So there's one here. That's fine. Oops, let's skip straight past it. So it's required. Last lessons. Nope, not that one. Okay. Okay, this one then. No. Oh. I see. I'm just like clicking ones at random now. Okay. Early summer, 1979 AD. Gross noises. Shit. Damn it. Shit. I'm gonna put a contents warning in here. On the title. Just because I have the feeling it's only going to get worse. Manager? Manager, come on, say something. Manager. Idiot. He's dead already. Clank. A loud noise snapped everyone out of it. Someone dropped the shovel he was holding. The shovel was smeared with reddish-black blood. No, not just the shovel. All 6 construction workers' clothes were blood-soaked too. One of them cried out to the silent body of the manager, which was drenched in blood. Manager. Shut up. He's already dead. It was self-defense, right? Self-defense. The fight had started after the manager yelled at them for drinking beer inside the office. There were no drinking and no smoking signs everywhere. The manager harshly scolded anyone who broke that rule, so it was the 6 workers' fault for disobeying. But they drank because they were stressed out by the anti-down protesters. That's why they said things to provoke the manager. They told him to step out, and the others went along. So this happens before the last fragment. The construction workers toiled hard and long hours. That's why they instigated the fight with the manager, to release their stress. They'd expected to just curse at each other or to end up in a wrestling match, but things escalated. Or to put it more accurately, the manager exploded all of a sudden. The manager had to deal with the residents' protests as well, so he was under just as much pressure, or maybe even more. But how he changed wasn't normal. The manager was calm at first, but he gradually became more and more aggressive. I keep getting... Every day more notifications appear. It was like he was possessed by something evil. The men who instigated the fight sobered up when they saw his behaviour. Then the manager picked up a shovel that was nearby and tried to smash his opponent's head in with it. So I guess he's the one who is possessed. He managed to avoid the hit, but if he didn't, his head would surely have been split open. So I guess each year there's someone who's possessed, someone who dies, and someone who goes missing. And those roles can overlap with each other. Possessed has syndrome, whatever you want to call it, because in the second year I suspect that Satoko was the one who killed her parents. I've got this feeling deep in my bones. Managed to avoid the hit, but if he didn't, his head would surely have been split open. The manager kept pounding on him with a shovel, even as he frantically tried to avoid the hits. By this time the workers had realised this was beyond a simple fight, so they tried to hold the manager down. But the manager turned on them with a shovel too. One of the men tried to protect himself by crossing his arms above his head, but there was no way that could have blocked a shovel swung with such force. Blood spurted out, and the man groaned in pain. By this time the 6 men had realised the manager was not his usual self. This manager would try to bash in their brains without hesitation. Since their opponent was using a shovel as his weapon, they had to find some kind of weapon too. One of them grabbed a huge hammer, then the others realised they needed to find something as well. To restrain the manager in that condition, it was better to arm themselves. It wasn't supposed to be this way. It didn't take that long for the madness to infect the workers. It was only a matter of time before they went from restraining him to lynching him. By the time they realised what had happened, the manager was already a lump of meat. His face was swollen, shreds of skin had been torn off, and his muscles and skull were visible too. Obviously, he was quite dead. Should I change the violence warning to a gore warning? Maybe. If you know anything about the Higurashi series, just know that this entire playthrough will contain canon typical references, no doubt, to both abuse, gore, and violence, so... Fuck. He almost killed us, remember? If he hadn't attacked us, we wouldn't have had to fight him, right? The leader of the 6th, the one who instigated the fight, tried to bring the rest to his side, but no one replied. And so the leader became frustrated. Pardon me, he was the one who started the fight. The rest simply joined in. He was the main perpetrator. Maybe that was why he was feeling so exasperated. He sensed that he was the one at fault. Don't just stand there like a limp noodle. It's too late. We killed him and there's nothing we can do about it. We're all murderers now. Back up. You ain't thinking about turning yourself in and doing time, are you? Fuck you. Can't go to the slammer at my age. We're hiding it. We're hiding this corpse and pretending nothing happened. Some of them knew he was on probation for an assault incident once before, so if he got into trouble with the law again, the punishment would be more severe than they could imagine. That was why he was trying desperately to find a way out. If he was alone with the manager's body, then he wouldn't have behaved this way. All he would have to do was hide the manager's body and pretend nothing happened. But there were 6 of them, including him. They were partners in crime and witnesses too, just like our friends later down the line. If even one of them turned himself in out of guilt, he'd be in big trouble. But even if we hide the body, they'll find out sooner or later. Instead, we should plead justifiable self-defense, and they might end up pardoning us. Oh, don't be so stupid. Look what we've done. Look at his face. Who would think this is the result of self-defense? His parents wouldn't even be able to identify him in this condition, you idiot. But even if we hide it, everyone's going to find out tomorrow morning when the manager doesn't show. It's hopeless. What's hopeless is your damn brain, you shared. He slapped the other man in the face. The leader had such an evil look in his eyes. Listen well, dipshits. We're all murderers, okay? Keep griping now and we'll get slammed with 5 or 6 years. Just one of you here try and blab. We'll all be locked up. Don't underestimate the pen. If you're prepared to be caught anyway, then run like your life depends on it. You can resign yourself to it later when it's time to pay the piper. His visage turned more and more demonic. It was the same expression the manager had just a few minutes before. Was he possessed by the same thing that possessed the manager? I'm like taking all the screenshots of like story-relevant spooky stuff as they appear. The 5 men started to think that way. Now that they considered it, all the villagers in the anti-dam protests had the same expression on their faces. The real name of Hinamizawa was Onagafuchi Village. People said that wicked demons lived there, and sometimes they possessed people. Men couldn't help but to recall the exaggerated story often told by the demonstrators. The manager swung the shovel after his expression changed to that demonic one. There was no guarantee that this man wouldn't do the same. In fact, he was still squeezing the hammer in his hand, glaring at everyone and threatening them. If someone suggested surrendering, he'd probably smash their head in with it. I know. To make sure nobody betrays the rest, I have an idea. It'll make it easier to hide the body, too. What is it? We're gonna cut up the body into 6 pieces. What? They all wanted to object to the idea. Killing him was a serious crime itself. Dismembering the body would be too much. But if anyone objected, he'd be killed on the spot. So no one said anything. We'll all cut him up together. Remember what the manager used to say? Teamwork. We're all in this together. We'll each take a body part and hide it responsibly. What do you think, huh? This way we're all equally guilty, right? I won't let anyone give themselves up. The 5 men were all taken in by his ghastly face, and they could even feel the fear of the Onagafuchi demons creeping up their backs. Capture absolutely cannot keep up with me reading the dialogue here. I can't save. I have to get through this whole bit. Okay. So now I think we've got... Oh! Gets the highlight if we can... We've clicked on it and can do it. Here we go. Right. Satoshi is a good brother who takes great care of his sister. He went to visit Toko straight after school and kept encouraging her to get better every day. Without even hearing Satoshi's stories, it's obvious to me that Toko never had a good relationship with her step-parents. She especially didn't get along with her stepfather. Toko even called a child abuse hotline once. Not only that, her parents ended up dying in an accident, so she just wasn't able to withstand all that damage. Toko is still very young, so everything must have been horrible for her to go through. Fortunately, she has a wonderful brother. Emotional wounds are hard to heal, but nothing heals those wounds better than love from family members. I'm sure that one day Satoko will be able to smile again. She's still in shock, but when she talks to Satoshi, she smiles a little bit. Oishi from the police department keeps requesting to see her, but I think I need to protect her for just a little longer. While he's passionate about his job, I wish he'd be a touch more sensitive. If he reminds her of her parents' accident, her emotional wounds will start to open again. That's the one point I worry about with Satoko. I heard someone knocking on the door. It was Mr. Kano. Doesn't look right, wearing a nurse's uniform like that. She's a licensed doctor, so she should wear a white coat and act like one. Maybe this is fun for her, but I think she might be insulting the real nurses. I didn't say anything though. Dr. Irie, may I talk to you? My Chicano voice, I've completely forgotten how to do it. Oh, yes. Well, Satoshi, if you'll excuse me. Ah, sure. Hello, Satoshi. Please, keep Satoko company. She's always alone, so I bet she's lonely, okay? Oh, that's not true. Okay, Satoshi, you're in charge. I got up and let Satoshi take over. Did something happen? Not right here. Let's go to your office. Takano smiled meaningfully. Usually smiles bring happy feelings, but when it comes to Ms. Takano, that's rarely the case. Are you sure? Yes. The initial test results show there's a possibility she's at L3 or above. We need to keep her here and run some more tests. The results aren't in yet, but from what I can see, it's very possible she's at L4. Takano's eyes sparkle in a weird way. There's a reason for that. For us, finding patients in the terminal stage is a valuable boon to our research. In fact, as a result of dissecting the murder suspect from last year, we've made great progress in our research. In other words, we finally managed to isolate the pathogen. Funky little flashback we had there. We'll pretend it was a flashback and not me messing up. Also discovered that when the host dies, the pathogen melts away within a few hours. Once that happens, it's undetectable. That's why we never found the pathogen when we performed autopsies. Our research made a lot of progress after that. What we found in this past year has easily surpassed what the late Dr. Takano found in decades. We're now studying the nature, the effect, and the symptoms of the pathogen, as well as treatments and vaccines. In other words, a living specimen who's at the terminal stage is a necessity for our research. However, we rarely find a patient who's gone that far, who's reached L5. Hinamizawa syndrome once created huge numbers of L5 patients, but today it doesn't have such potency. Because of that, we have to secure L5 patients, or patients who are close to reaching L5 as soon as possible. Satoko possibly qualifies to be that next sacrifice. To keep the strange disease a secret, we can't let patients who may be at L5 go. We have to run more tests first, then we'll figure out what to do next. In any case, Satoko seems so calm. Her behaviour is nothing like the man from last year. Initial tests are in error sometimes. We'll have to wait for the results of more detailed tests to determine how serious her condition is. Okay, let's admit her for observation. Please let the staff know to get things ready. That sounds like a formal answer, but if the results come back positive, that will be the green light for her dissection. I don't know Satoko that well, but I've known her brother, Satoshi, through the baseball team for a long time. How could I dissect the apple of Satoshi's eye? I can feel scary images flashing in my head for the first time. Don't worry, everything is already taken care of. She smiled as if telling me that the dissection is already being prepared for too. Is it just her who's smiling? Am I smiling like her too? When I dissected that man last year, I did feel guilt beforehand, but once I started, it was like I was in paradise. All the pieces of the puzzle that were left by the late Dr. Takano fell into place, and at the same time, they didn't. How exciting it was. Knowing that we're the first ones to take the first steps to solve a mystery, that is. I don't even know how to explain this feeling to those who've never experienced it. There's no way to describe it with words. The only thing I can say is that even a year later, I still remember it vividly. Creepy. So if the results show that Satoshi's beloved sister is being dissected, can I control myself? Can I stay calm? But that means I'm a failure of a human being. I know very well that the Hojo family was treated poorly by the villagers, and I know what Satoko had to go through. Also, I know Satoshi loves his sister, who is his one and only blood relative. How can I dissect Satoko, using my research as an excuse? I didn't feel much guilt for the man from last year, but I feel unbearable guilt towards Satoko. That means what I did last year was sinful. I don't care if a stranger dies, but I don't want Satoko to die. That's not right. Arguably, it's very, very human. All lives are equally precious. I tried to convince myself that he was a violent murderer, but maybe he only became that way because he was at the terminal stage. I don't know anything about him before he became deranged. Maybe he was a model citizen who was worthy of respect. Unfortunately, he became ill and ended up doing what he did. Maybe he was a victim himself, just like my father. I know more about Hinamizawa syndrome than anyone. This disease makes people act in bizarre ways, without those people realising it. So when the people at the terminal stage do such strange and violent things, one should be sympathetic. I already knew that back when I decided to go down this path. I should have remembered it sooner, but I only did just now. Finally realised what sinful research I'm working on. Satoko's detailed test results came back. The results say L5. She's at the terminal stage of the terminal stage. It's actually a surprising result. In last year's case, the patient was extremely deranged. According to Mr. Kano's records, he complained about itching coming from the lymph nodes all over his body, and he wanted to claw at his throat, just as the late Dr. Takano mentioned. But Satoko wasn't displaying such symptoms. Even in the late Takano's data, Throat clawing is said to be a characteristic symptom of terminal stage patients. However, not all patients experience that symptom. Besides, emotional expression is very different in each person. Even if it's the same emotion, one patient may express it rather violently and another may express it calmly. There's no way of knowing just by looking at a person. But Stoko's detailed test results say she's at the terminal stage, L5. In other words, she may be feeling what the man from last year was feeling. It's just that she isn't expressing that feeling in the same way the man was. I suppose also if she's already vented that feeling by killing her parents, as I suspect she did, it may be that she doesn't necessarily feel the need to express it now, because she's already sort of had an outlet for that rage and presumably gotten away with it. This is when it turns around, so she didn't kill her parents, it was a complete accident, and I'm just I'm unfortunately blaming her. I can't shake that feeling out of my brain, you know? Hinamizawa syndrome affects the frontal lobes of the brain. It stimulates the most primitive emotions, down, very strongly. As a result, terminal patients are trapped in delusions and paranoia and end up committing horrible crimes. Stoko seems to show improvement when she's exchanging friendly words with Satoshi, but there's a paranoia stirring inside her that may put her in a deranged state at any moment. I can't let her leave the clinic like this. However, if things go according to the manual, I'll have to make a decision on her dissection. My decision will only be a formality. I can't actually refuse. Mr. Kano appears to be already working on the dissection schedule. The plan will then come to me. Would I feel the same way while dissecting Stoko? Would I be able to experience that trance once again? No, the question is, can I fight the temptation? As I pretend to question myself, I'm letting Mr. Kano prepare things on her own. By doing so, am I passively agreeing to Takano's dissection? If possible, I want to save Satano, combination of the two. I don't want her to be a sacrifice for this research. I don't want to dissect her. What about the man from last year? Do I only care about the lives of people I know? If I don't dissect her, do I let her live and leave the clinic? Do I simply wait for her to become deranged and commit a horrible crime? And then she'll end up here, just like the man from last year, and I'll end up dissecting her anyway. The man from last year was dissected alive, and kept that way for several months. Fucking grim! Oh my god. I don't know if I want to read that out loud. He was kept alive just for our cruel experiments. It's really fucking grim. I don't want to do that to her. I don't know what to do. Even debating and agonising over it is leading towards consent to her dissection by elimination. That's so grim. Oh my word. Yeah. That's what I have to say to that. Okay. Do the other conflict thing. I ran into Stoko while on my way to the grocery store for my mother. Stoko said she was going there too. Flashback time. So we decided to go together. After exchanging our shopping lists, it became easy to guess what the other family would be having for dinner. Stoko's family is having grilled fish and cooked vegetables. We're having Salisbury steak. My, that sounds so very good. I don't mind the grilled fish, but it's the vegetables I'm less fond of. I'm certain there's still plenty of pumpkin there from the other day. Then I bet you'll be getting a lot tonight. Poor Stoko. I don't appreciate knowing that pumpkin is going to show up on the dinner table. Meep. You don't like pumpkin, no matter how it shows up. Valid. Rika, you have some food you're not fond of, don't you? That's right, you don't like daifuku, cream puffs, or anything sweet, don't you? It's not that I don't like those things, I just choose not to eat them. If I wanted to, I could eat sweets forever. I could even eat pumpkin pie too, Nipa. Ugh, it's not fair that you aren't a picky eater. Conversations like this are how I have fun. Satoko is my best friend. I usually don't like grocery shopping, but if I'm with Satoko, I can make it into an enjoyable evening stroll. Near the supermarket, there's a grocer's and other shops, forming a little shopping district. Grocery store is busy this time of day. All the housewives in Hinamizawa gather here to shop. Since Satoko and I have different things to buy, we decided to do our shopping separately. Welcome, welcome. Oh, Rika, are you shopping for your mother? What a good girl. Nipa, I'm a good girl who can go shopping by herself. Wow, you really are a good girl. Here, I'll give you this. There were several candies for the owner's occasional asthma attacks inside a sieve full of change hanging in the front. He picked out a sweet from there and gave it to me. It was my favourite flavour, strawberry milk. I put it in my pocket so I can brag about it to Satoko later. I get a lot of fun out of teasing Satoko and making her jealous. She always overreacts, so I never get bored when I'm with her. What are you having for dinner tonight, Rika? Ground pork. We're making Salisbury steak. We're going to put flour-shaped fried eggs on top and draw pictures on them with ketchup. That sounds so good, especially the fried eggies. Oh, that sounds like fun. I enjoyed that conversation while filling my shopping basket. But then I overheard some women whispering. They're talking about something that's a little harsh. They're talking about Satoko. How long do those village traitors plan to stay here? They should just leave. They don't even have the guts to go shopping themselves and make their daughter do it instead. The women went on and on. Ever since the Hojo family and the Sonozaki family got into a huge fight at the explanatory meeting for the dam project, the Hojo family has been ostracised within the village. At first, there were a significant number of families in favour of leaving like the Hojos, but the main branch of the Sonozakis led a push to completely solidify the village's opinion, and as that tone of unified resistance grew stronger, pro-evacuation families grew steadily quiet. The public harassment led by the Sonozakis and Kimiyoshis, two of the three families with powerful influence on the village, also played an effect too. The Sonozaki family made the Hojo family into an example, to ensure there'd be no more pro-evacuation supporters. The ancestors of the village have lived here for generations, and the villagers also know that they themselves will be buried here, so this harassment put a lot of pressure on them. Who was it that agreed to make the Hojo family the leader of the pro-evacuation group at the explanatory meeting? Those same people no longer said anything, and they even joined in on harassing the Hojo family. The harassment they faced then became pressure from the entire village. The Hojo family is hardly wealthy, and they haven't paid the town council fees in a long time. When things were peaceful, nobody said anything about it, but now that the wind was blowing a different way, the Hojo family was asked to pay off all of their late council fees immediately. It wasn't an amount they could afford, but the Hojos recognised a fight was being picked with them and they responded to it, and so the Hojo family quit the town council, but that only played right into the villagers' plan. Making an enemy of the town council meant facing vicious harassment. For example, the place the Hojos dumped their trash was a provisional dumping site established by the town council and the waste management department. Under the council agreement, only council members could use it. Ever since the day the Hojo family quit the village council, trash bags were returned to their front door. Furthermore, all the bags were torn. On top of that, a sign went up on the hedgerow near the Hojo family. It said, "Private road, no trespassing. Only council members permitted." A stubborn old man stood and guarded the road, saying he'd not let any other Hojo family members pass through. A private road is private property opened up to the public, so it looks just like a normal road. However, as private property, the owner can forbid anyone else to pass through when they like. More and more, the village piled on vicious harassment. The fear of antagonism spread through the entire village, and people became afraid that if they supported the Hojo family, they'd go through the same thing. This has made the Hojo family even more isolated. The grown-ups haven't told their kids about what's going on, so Satoko isn't harassed in any way at school. But it wasn't hard to imagine she probably spent her days feeling so anxious she could hardly breathe. Even the women whispering in here aren't saying anything directly to her, but it's not like she doesn't notice their muttering and stares. When did this village become so cold towards her? As a best friend, it's very sad for me. Satoko's shopping experience is nothing like mine. When I say hello or buy things, I usually get treats or a discount, but that doesn't happen to Satoko. On the contrary, she's served last on purpose, and sometimes shop owners even pretend they don't hear her. Obviously, people don't want to have anything to do with her. Satoko had been weaving through the housewives crowding the shop, telling the fishmonger what she wanted, but she kept getting ignored. She's decided to keep a smile and pretend she doesn't mind, but I know. It was far too painful for her to endure. At that point, Satoko dropped her coins on the ground. Maybe her finger got stuck on something when she was trying to put the change back into her wallet. I ran through the crowd to help her pick them up, but as I did, I noticed something. Satoko dropped a lot of coins and is struggling to pick all of them up, but nobody's helping her. It's not just that. It's almost like they're acting they don't even see her there. Satoko isn't expecting anyone to help her, since she's the one who dropped them. But there are so many people around, and not even one is trying to aid her. Satoko, I'll help you. I'm okay, Rika. That reaction is all I need to tell how hurt she is. Furthermore, when I started to help Stoko, other housewives started to pick up the coins too, as if it's the natural thing to do. So they can only help if a shrine maiden of the Frude family does? If I didn't help, they'd have disregarded her completely. And the fact that other people helped only because I did hurts Toko even more. I grabbed the coins from the housewives without thanking them. I'd rather spit at them than do that. Thank you very much, Rika, everyone. If she didn't thank them, people would talk about that too. So Toko forced out her words of gratitude. The housewives looked down at her with blank expressions. Can't stand this. I can't stand what Toko is going through right now. If we're done, let's go, Satoko. Sure. I grabbed Stoko's arm and pulled her away. I was frustrated, sad, and bitter. What has Satoko done? Reality is just too cruel. Everyone loves me, but can I share that love with Satoko? Satoko must be wondering why people treat me so differently. I shouldn't come shopping with her, or rather, I should have done her shopping instead. Satoko? What is it, Rika? I feel bad that you dropped your coins, so here's something that'll make you happy. I wanted to at least ease her pain a little bit, so I pulled out the strawberry milk candy I just received. But she refused to take it. That candy was given to you. My hand froze. She saw me getting this candy. That person wanted you to eat it, so if I did, it'd be rude. Stoko turned her back on me and kept walking. Without even saying goodbye, she continued on to her house with the shopping bags in her hands. I only wanted to ease her pain, but I ended up rubbing salt on her wound. How can I call myself her best friend? If I could, I would have crushed the candy right there. Shit's so fucked up. I really, really feel so bad for Satoko. Even though I'm the one accusing her, I feel awful for her. So, yeah, there's the one I'm looking for, the one with the red candy. This one, strawberry milk candy is required. Here we go. Neon, your friend is here. I heard the housekeeper's voice. Our house and the front yard are huge, so unlike normal houses, ringing a doorbell or yelling my name repeatedly, asking to play won't work. Okay, thank you. Who is it? Rika Furude. My voice is like breaking. Oh, finally. Can you tell Granny that Rika's here? I think she's on the porch. I'll get the watermelon. Granny received many beautiful watermelons from somebody, so she wanted to share. I just called the Furude house a short time ago, and Rika is here to pick one up. Did she come on her bicycle? I can't remember if it has a big enough basket. I pulled the watermelon from the well while thinking about that. The cold water in the well has refrigerated the watermelon, and the condensation makes it look delicious. The 3 members of the Furude family will enjoy it for at least 2 nights. Fun watermelon fact, my dinner yesterday was a box of sliced watermelon because I absolutely could not face cooking anything at all. Even like putting the kettle on and making pasta was too much, so I just ate watermelon instead. Me? Am I supposed to take it home? I thought, what? Didn't your dad tell you? Priest answered the phone and I thought I told him to come pick it up. Maybe I wasn't clear enough, or maybe he misunderstood me, but she's here to eat the watermelon, not take it home. Besides, the small basket on her bicycle won't hold the watermelon, and it's too dangerous for her to ride while holding it. Mion, why don't you help Rika take back the watermelon? There's no way she can ride a bicycle while carrying it. I can hold the watermelon. No, that's too dangerous. If something happened to you, I wouldn't know what to say to Oyashiro-sama. Mion will help you. Okay, I will. I'll go say hello to the priest, too. No matter whether she rides or pushes her bicycle, Rika's hands will be occupied, so I'm going to carry the watermelon. The sky is turning auburn in the sunset. The cool breeze feels good on my sandaled feet. The plastic bag I'm carrying contains the watermelon, and also some small bags of rock candy. If her mother finds them, she'll take them away, so we decided to eat them before we got to her home. We opened the bags and enjoyed the rock candy. Rika isn't an exception. Whenever kids from our neighbourhood come to our house for errands, Granny gives them some treats. Actually, it's a pretty common rule in Hinamizawa. I wish. It's funny, but sometimes when parents aren't watching, siblings will fight over who gets to take the circular notice to the next house over. So these bags of rock candy are like tips for them. Of course, she doesn't normally give out this much. Usually it's just a little piece of it. Granny is being extra nice to Rika. I just had the abrupt thought of how nice fruit-flavoured rock candy would be right now, and I just have a deep and abrupt craving. I feel bad getting all this candy. Don't worry, Granny loves you. You should just thank her and put a big smile on your face, that's all. Do you get lots of treats? I used to, but at this age they don't give me any. If they did though, I'd probably feel I was being treated like a kid. Me, I'm being treated like a child then. That's okay. Enjoy it while you can. When you become as old as me, you won't get any even if you wanted some. As we talked about ordinary things, I noticed Rika seemed a little sad. What's wrong? Whenever I run errands, I get candy as a treat, but Satoko doesn't get any even if she comes with me. I can think of so many reasons why. Not only Satoko, but everyone in the Hojo family is being treated poorly in Hinamizawa. And the Sonozaki family are the ones who instigated that. The 2 dam supporters have died in an accident already, but the malice against the Hojo family is still going. It's directed against Toko and Satoshi, their children, and the aunt and uncle who are taking care of them. The big fight between the Hojo family and the Sonozaki family at the explanatory meeting started all this. But that was the Hojo couple, and it shouldn't have anything to do with the kids and their aunt and uncle. But the idea that the Hojo family are traitors evolved on its own. Therefore, anyone bearing the Hojo name is to be treated poorly. The aunt and uncle weren't dam supporters, so over time the attacks towards them should have stopped. But they're rather odd, and they keep having trouble with their neighbours. They don't follow the community rules, they don't do the community duties, and they spray pesticides while their neighbour's laundry is hanging outside. They often get into fights with the other villagers. They'd be heated even without the dam. Therefore, the Hojo family continues to be treated poorly. Like, the aunt and uncle are objectively awful people, but that really should not reflect on the kids. But none of that should have anything to do with Satoko and Satoshi. Satoko and Satoshi are often depressed at school. I tried to leave the conflict between the 2 families aside, but I wonder how they really feel about that. From their point of view, I'm just another member of the family that keeps harassing them. I don't want any of that at school. That's why I try to be their friend while we're there. How can we get that to extend outside too, instead of just staying in the school? That'd be pretty difficult. The Hojo family made enemies of the 3 families. They were branded as traitors, and that's still considered the truth. It wouldn't mean anything if one person suggested an end to the hostilities just because the events around the dam are history now. On the contrary, that would just put them in the same position. Unfortunately for Satoko and Satoshi, the only thing they can do is wait patiently until the issue withers away. All I can do for them is provide an oasis until that day comes. So how long do they have to wait? I don't know. The dam conflict lasted for several years. They were branded back then, so it might take years to clear up too. Do you mean they won't be forgiven until they become adults? Will Satoko have to live out her childhood going through that? That's pretty miserable, isn't it? We are their friends, aren't we? Sure, they're my friends. We're all buddies. Then isn't there something we can do to help our friends? What exactly can we do? Even if the Sonozaki family declares the dam conflict is over, so the Hojo family are no longer outcasts, that won't solve the problem. It's not that simple. In the first place, Granny hates the Hojo family and won't suffer their name to be mentioned in her presence. It's not a matter of someone forgiving another. It's a matter of very complicated ties between the people in the village. It's absolutely terrifying to have them as your enemies. Everyone knows that very well, and that's why they maintain good relationships. However, if you make enemies out of them, you'll have to face the consequences. That's the unwritten law of the Japanese community. And the Sonozaki family is a part of this unwritten law. Now that the Hojo family are outcasts, not even the Sonozaki family can overturn the situation. So even if it's an issue of Hinamizawa, we can't do anything about it as Hinamizawa residents? Unfortunately, that's probably so, yeah. If there's someone who can help Satoko, that person must be someone who has nothing to do with the village. But there's no one like that here. Are you saying someone from the outside has to come help her? Like Rika says, would a knight in shining armour from the outside world ever come here? Would that person bring in a new wind to this village that has been filled with stale air for hundreds of years? Wink, wink, wink. No way. That's just wishful thinking. Time will solve the problem someday. Until then, I have to be their ally. I can't think of anything else I can do for them. As Rika and I crunched on our rock candy, we can only pray that people will forgive Satoko and her family sooner rather than later. Rika gently broke the heavy silence. I know. I know someone who has absolutely, I know someone who has absolutely nothing to do with the village will come here from the outside. That's right. The dam conflict is over, so it'd be great if more people moved in to those lots that are for sale. Wouldn't it be fun if a family with a kid our age moved in? He'll come. I know. And we'll break this evil practice alongside him. That'll be the first key to one of the 3 locks that have us trapped in the past. Eh? What's this? You talking about a novel or something? Rika says some odd things sometimes. When she talks that way, she seems so mature. I even start to doubt she's really younger than I am, because she's not. The unreasonable antagonism towards the Hojo family. Will there really be someone from the outside who will shatter our old traditions? Pardon me. Ugh, got so much stuck in my throat. Next. This one, I think. Suffering of a Big Brother. A group of boys are playing baseball under the powerful sun. The sound of cicadas makes the heat stand out even more, but to those boys it's just another kind of cheering from the crowds. Of course they go through training exercises to build stamina, but the boys don't actually like such routine activities. What they look forward to most is a free game after practice. The school in Hinamizawa is actually borrowed from the forestry service. The schoolyard is made of gravel, so it's not very appropriate for playing sports on. Compared to that, the grounds at the school in Okonomiya are properly maintained for athletic activities, so the kids grow even more energetic when they come here. Kids from Hinamizawa really don't care if the ground is made from gravel or not. The other instructor was watching the game, so I decided to go get some drinks for the team. Coach, where are you going? I thought I'd get some drinks for everyone. Do you mind helping me, Satoshi? Oh no, not at all. Satoshi decided to come along with me. Sometimes kids don't like what grown-ups choose, so I'm glad he agreed to help. Satoshi and I got in the car and headed to the grocery store nearby. Manager, how's Satoko doing? Well, she's doing fine. Although it's an extremely slow process, her emotional wounds are healing. I think we should let her rest for a little longer. It's natural for Satoshi to be worried. Satoko has been in the hospital for over 2 weeks. Of course, he doesn't know his sister has Hinamizawa syndrome. Not only that, but she's almost at L5. She could become deranged at any moment. He believes she's depressed because of the shock of her parents' accident. He came to the clinic every day to cheer his sister up, but Satoko has become emotionally unstable and was showing some dangerous symptoms, so we called off the visits. Oof. In fact, Satoko is not doing so well. L5, the stage she's at, is a very abnormal one. The man from last year, who was at the same stage, was acting so abnormal that even a drug addict in his final stages would have turned and ran. Wink. There's no guarantee Satoko wouldn't fall into the same condition. When we performed the autopsy on that man last year, we learned the true identity of the syndrome and gained a greater understanding of its mechanisms. We even discovered some important facts that may lead to the development of a cure. However, we've yet to find a method of actually curing the disease, so if Satoko becomes unrecoverable, we may have to dissect her, just like we did the man from last year. How can I tell Satoshi about his sister's situation? All I can do is make vague comments and lie to him that she's recovering. What if she becomes much worse? That would make me an unforgivable liar. The tiny bit of conscience that remains in me hurts. If it's okay with your clinic, can she stay there a little longer? Why are you saying that? I thought you wanted to come home as soon as possible, so I'm a little surprised. Well, actually, Satoko doesn't get along with her aunt. I heard she didn't get along with her parents, but she can't get along with your aunt and uncle either. Satoko doesn't open up to grown-ups. Satoshi has told me about their family background. Their mother's constantly marriage wounded her children deeply. Satoshi was able to overcome it, but Satoko was too young to be able to do that. She is literally a child. She is baby. That left her traumatized, and she now has a tendency to distrust or dislike guardians who aren't related to her. Actually, nobody would like a guardian who isn't related to them. It's not just Satoko, but usually people try and deal with that, even if they don't like it. I guess Satoko is not capable of that. Our uncle isn't home much. Besides, even when he is, he's either sleeping or watching TV, so he's not the problem. But our aunt really goes after Satoko. Why doesn't she like her? I can guess why. Satoko's parents were dam proponents, and because of that, the villagers consider the aunt and uncle part of the Hojo family and ostracize them as such. Moreover, they passed away suddenly in an accident and left 2 children behind, so I guess there'd be more hate there than gratitude. She'd have been obedient like Satoshi, everything would have been fine. But Satoko can't be that way. She shows that in her attitude and expressions, which lead to her and her aunt having a big fight. I've told my aunt about Satoko's situation, but she just can't understand. I think you're a great big brother, Satoshi. You're the one and only relative that she has left now. Right, I feel that way too. Satoshi said with a slight hint of a sigh. He doesn't say it, but it seems Satoshi has grown tired of having to cover for Satoko every time she and her aunt fight. Whoops. He's a good person as well as a good big brother, so I'm sure he'll do anything to cover for his sister, but that's a very exhausting thing to keep doing forever. Satoshi was already doing that when the parents were alive, and eventually his mental equilibrium couldn't handle the strain. He grew sick and he visited my clinic. I thought circumstances might have improved after initial cause. His parents were gone, but it seems things were even worse than before. I understand. I can't release Satoko if things are like that. Her symptoms may return again. Don't worry about the hospital fees. I'll make sure Satoko truly recovers. While trying to pretend I'm listening to his requests, I feel a little disgusted at myself for making such selfish excuses. I'll make sure. Mr. Kano is working on her dissection plan as we speak. If that's possible, that'll help me too. I mean, if Satoko stays in the clinic a little while longer, then I can relax as well. That's all. What do you mean? As soon as Satoko comes back, I know she'll get into fights with my aunt again. Then it's back to those days of constant fighting and screaming, and I'll probably get dragged into it too. So if Satoko were hospitalised for a very long time, that'd be easiest on me. But when I think like that, I hate myself. Satoshi. Satoshi is a great big brother who always sticks up for his little sister, but that doesn't mean he doesn't feel burdened. To think things like that, what a terrible big brother I am. The more I think that way, the more I hate myself. Satoshi said, sniffling once. His expression was one of anguish, as if truly feeling his own sin. His desire to be a model big brother is putting himself under great pressure. I feel bad for Satoko, but I also feel bad for Satoshi in a different way. As someone who knows both of them well, I feel I must be their ally, since they don't have anyone else who cares about them. I feel really bad for him too. Okay, dokie, so the whispering here is really unnerving me. No, still not that one. Because it would tell me if I could do that one. Gonna look it up. I don't know what to say. I want to say something, but I can't think of the right words. I can only sigh. Ah, Mr. Oishi, I've been looking for you. The section manager asked me about the wanted poster. Be quiet. This is a place of rest. As Kumagai barged into the room, the old coroner quickly snapped back at him. Sorry, the section manager asked me about the wanted poster for the suspect. Can you talk to Kamiyama about that? I need to speak to the coroner here. Could you tell him I'll be right over? Okay. Kumagai ran out of the autopsy room with the same haste he entered in. Lively, isn't he? The old man would have slapped him for making such a fuss. You probably should go back too. The air in here isn't for people who aren't used to it. You're right. If I slack off too long, I might get slapped as well. Here in Shishibone, all the hodlums cross the street when you pass through, yet he's the only one, past or future, who's ever punched you for splitting your sumo wrong. He really was a merciless man. I think he punched me more than my real father. Doesn't matter if he was your real one or not. If you looked up to him in the same way, then he really was a father to you. My real father passed away in Nagoya. He was unlucky. If he wasn't given the order to move to a plant in Nagoya, he wouldn't have died in an air raid. If he could have rode it out another half year or so, then the war would have been over. I was sad, of course, but I was grown up enough by then that I didn't cry into the ground like my mother did. But people feel sadness in different ways. For some people, it all comes at once as an overwhelming wave, but others feel sadness gradually over a long period of time. I think I was the latter. When he was alive, I only thought of him as annoying. In my mind, I even cursed him with questions about why he avoided the draft. And I thought my feelings towards him would always be the same. Then the war ended. As I saw families and friends being reunited with joy as they came home from the front, it finally happened. I grieved for my father's death. Japan was filled with people who were sad and full of despair. I knew I wasn't the only one whose life ended up that way. But I remember I was very, very heartbroken. After the war, the nation completely changed. As a policeman, the environment I worked in went through sudden changes too. In order to forget my sorrow, the only thing I could do was devote myself to my work. At the time, I was in charge of busting people for buying rice illegally. I conducted spot checks on travellers at major train stations, and boy did I find a lot of them. There was a fairly big black market in GORE, and a lot of people came from as far as Osaka to buy it. After the war, Japan faced a chronic shortage in food supply. To those ends, the nation instituted a food rationing programme by signing the Food Control Act. But the rations the government provided weren't even close to being enough to feed families. Therefore, people had no choice other than buying food and supplies on the black market. The government hardly had enough food for rations, but there was somehow plenty on the black market. The dealers there sold it at outrageous prices, and some of them became quite wealthy. The Sonozaki family made their money through the black market, but that's another story. The government didn't bother arresting these dealers, for with their money, they were able to buy off the top members of the police department. I've got something stuck in my throat, so I apologise, I keep coughing. Instead, they decided to go, after the people buying the goods, and even confiscated the rice they bought by selling everything they owned. Yeah, I remember that. Wasn't there a prosecutor who starved himself to death? Yeah, there was. The prosecutor who vowed not to eat illegal rice starved to death. Wasn't it in 1947? That was horrible. He, a public prosecutor, proved to himself that people couldn't survive by adhering to the law. The prosecutor had grown tired of the government charging people with doing whatever they could to survive, and he proclaimed that he was never going to buy black market rice again. In 1947, he starved to death when he was only in his mid-30s. The law prohibited people from buying black market rice, but that was the only way to survive. In that case, was the FCA a bad law itself? The death of the prosecutor was seen as a desperate message to the government about the unjustness of that law. We rounded up people with bags of rice and lined them up at the temporary inspection point next to the station. It was like a military tribunal. We inspected their bags and confiscated everything they bought at the black market. The women all cried. They sold everything they owned to buy the rice. They pleaded that if we confiscated the rice, how would they feed their starving children? Doesn't make sense, huh? Yet they forbade you from going after the sellers, so it was absolutely unfair from the view of the people. Everyone was on edge. Just save. If they heard a police inspection was set up at the next station, they'd jump off the train and run. We were aware of these people, so we set up several officers near jump-off spots in order to capture them. I remember chasing after women carrying several kilos of rice on them. That was when I first met the old man. Man, I was surprised. Remember my father? He looked exactly like him. I really thought that maybe my father had miraculously survived the air raid in Nagoya. I was chasing a man who was running away from the inspection point. There was no way for him to run with a heavy bag of rice on him. So either he'd get arrested with the illegal rice, or escape by ditching the rice that he'd bought, selling all of his belongings. In other words, if a person is being chased by the police, that person can't provide his family any rice to eat. Of course, I felt guilty about that. I knew people had to buy the rice to survive, so we had a tacit agreement to let those who ditched the rice and ran get away. So I always thought the same thing as I chased them. Please, throw it away. I didn't want to catch him, because I didn't want to hear him crying and pleading in distress. It was then that the old man showed up. He looked exactly like my dead father. I was dumbfounded. Then all of a sudden, he punched me in the head. If a father disciplines you as a child, you lower your head in apology. I was so happy to see my father alive that I couldn't hold my joy in. The old man said, "Let him go." When I heard his voice, I realised he wasn't my father, so I thought I'd arrest him for assaulting a policeman. But a young man like me, who'd barely grown any hairs yet, was no match for an older man used to fighting. Yeah, he sure taught me a lesson. He gave me a good scolding in the middle of the street after I was all beat up. Who would even listen to him, right? But something struck me then. I kept seeing my father in him. All I could do was listen. Yeah, he was a ruffian, but he showed his guts like a real man. That's what made him such a great guy. You don't see men like him nowadays. He was a true example of a man from the good old times. Despite my age, I still needed a father. I needed someone to look up to and to show me what makes a man a man. When I think about it, I really did have two fathers. The old man was a father, a brother, and my best friend. But now here he lies, with his body, a head, body, arms and legs all dismembered, and his right arm hasn't been found. He taught me how to be a man, how to enjoy alcohol, how to play mahjong, and with that right arm, he gave me a good beating when I did something wrong. But that right arm is still missing. Do you have any suspects? Yeah, of course. I swear, I'll find the old man's right arm and pay them back for what they've done to him. They're running Hinamizawa from the shadows, and inciting this collective crime they call the Dam Protests. The Sonozaki family. I declare war within myself. I already knew who my enemy is. Okay, so I think it will be... okay. Okay. Not there. Maybe smooth. Right now it's not appeared yet. My nails are quiet. Where are which one are we next? Please help me, guide. No. I forgot there's a whole load more to go. Okay. Okay. I think we're starting on like another story strand here. Because everything's sort of like tied together, so we will start this story strand. Time for another flashback. Sorry for being late. I had an unusually large number of patients today. Thank you for coming, Lieutenant Colonel Irie. Tomitake stood up suddenly and saluted when he saw Irie come into the room. All right, stop calling me Lieutenant Colonel. I'm a doctor. I just can't get used to military ranks. Can you call me Director instead? Understood, Director Irie. Tomitake, of course, knew that Irie didn't like to be called Lieutenant Colonel, so it was something of a joke. They laughed casually together. On the other hand, Takano looked rather fed up with it. She couldn't stand hearing the same joke over and over and was even thinking about talking to Tomitake about it. But she didn't want to hurt his feelings, so she simply never had the chance. Maybe it's because of how Tomitake pronounces it, but she keeps hearing Risa. Explanation. Risa. When she heard it that way, she kept hearing Irie Risa every time Tomitake said it. When Takano told Irie about it, he had a good laugh. Today was just a simple meet greet, and tomorrow was the actual meeting. Tomitake had already arrived, but there were more inspectors from Tokyo at the meeting, waiting to hear about the progress that had been made. Anyway, I heard the whole village is all up in arms about the dam construction project. You can say that again. The village is in such a mess. I participated in local municipal explanation meetings and official, but the whole thing was alive with angry shouts and profanities. After the basic Hinamizawa Dam project was announced, the village was consumed with uproar. The government retracted their plans for concessions rather early on. They made their aggressive stance clear. They didn't want the locals to take advantage of them by showing their willingness to compromise. However, that backfired horribly. As they had historical ties to the land, the government actions only made their bond stronger. Neither the government nor the locals wanted to back down. People from Hinamizawa are rather hot-tempered, maybe because they're descendants of demons. It's not funny. That wild meeting lasted all night. I feel your pain. Really, it's not funny, Mr. Tomitake. So, what's going on with the dam construction? Are they really going to submerge the village? Tokyo's applying their pressure to the situation too. Things might seem glamorous on the surface, but in truth, the supporters behind it are wavering rather hard. I hope their pressure produces results soon. The whole village is buzzing with action from dusk to dawn, and I worry the villagers' minds are growing agitated. Sometimes I have to listen to my patients go on and on about their opinion on the dam construction plan. Why do you even listen to them? You're too nice. I have to. I'm a clinic director first and a research centre director second. It's part of my job to listen to them. That's very nice of you. It's admirable. I know the people in Tokyo will call off the plan sooner or later, but the villagers don't, so they have to live in fear that they might be forced to leave the land where they've lived for generations. Even if they're told to leave, they don't have money, and a lot of them are old. Maybe some wanted an increase in the amount of compensation they'd be offered, but the government changed its mind. I don't think it's possible for them to come to a peaceful agreement at this point. There are actually some villagers who are satisfied with that amount and were willing to leave. However, the Sonozaki family didn't want to change their stance against the issue. They're actually leading the villagers in the fight against the government. There are blaring announcement vans everywhere, and ads and flyers are attached to the circulation notices. It's a serious matter for them. I guess I can understand. I hope the construction plan will be called off soon, for their sake. Once it's called off, this village will become peaceful once again. I know that, of course. Things are moving right along in Tokyo, so please give us a little more time. I've heard a rumour from Tokyo that you're having problems finding a way to pressure the Minister of Construction. Is that true? Oh, I'm not sure, but I've heard myself that they're having a little problem with some of the details. Takano had powerful people supporting her, but they didn't control all of Japan. There were some things they excelled in, but other things that weren't too good at. Finding a way to put pressure onto the Minister of Construction fell into the latter. In all seriousness, though, we really won't be facing any requests to leave this area because of the dam, right? Of course not. I can guarantee that won't happen. It's just taking longer than we thought, that's all. So please, continue your research. We were told that if things can't be resolved peacefully, then we may have to use drastic measures. Drastic measures? What do you mean, Tomitake? You don't need to worry about that part, Director Irie. Please, let us take care of it. I see. Okay. Thank you for your work. It's fine, Dr. Irie. The dam construction plan will be called off. It's already been decided. As Takano giggled, Tomitake laughed too. However, Irie couldn't understand what was so funny, so he felt left out. Irie only understood the meaning of those drastic measures when he examined a young boy he'd never seen in the village before. Hint, 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 hint. Okay. This one? No. We need to do this one. I should really do all of this fragments are required first. Maybe I'll do that now. Group physical exams are very meaningful for our research. Although it's only for certain age groups, we can examine many of the Hinamizawa residents at the same time. It's a perfect cover for our research centre. Also, because of several arrangements, we have a monopoly on the villagers' corpses and can perform autopsies on them too. Certainly wasn't an environment this rich an opportunity for those in the medical field. Our follow-up on the work of the late Dr. Takano was going smoothly. The amount of data he compiled was absolutely astounding. He truly was an incredible researcher. Excuse me, Director? Oh, Mr. Kano, thank you for your work. We just received the rest of the test results from Tokyo. Here they are. Thank you. It's getting interesting, isn't it? I'm glad we can share this joy. Takano was my assistant, who was sent from the Self-Defense Force. But she's far from the image I have of an SDF officer. Just like our research is being concealed, maybe her identity is concealed too. I'm sure her name is an alias as well. I'm just a doctor and a researcher. Without Mr. Kano's support, it would be impossible for me to manage this institution. She's the pipeline to her clients in Tokyo, my assistant, as well as the researcher who's an expert on Hinamizawa syndrome. Her existence is absolutely necessary here. The more I think about it, the more I feel this should have been the Takano Institute rather than the Irie Institute, and she should have been the director. That was explained to me when they asked me to take this position. My client wanted a civilian to manage this place. They searched for a person who met the requirements, and there I was. I became the director. I have a feeling I'm just a puppet on their strings. You absolutely are, Irie, don't worry. But I won't just sit here and do nothing. I was asked to research a rare disease. I am a researcher, so of course I'm excited about that. My client's goals might be different, but I'm here out of a desire to unravel the mysteries of Hinamizawa syndrome and be the first person to uncover a new mystery for mankind. We have all this data that suggests the existence of a parasite is the cause of the syndrome, yet we still can't find factual evidence of the culprit microbe itself. That's strange. I thought we'd find it easily if we used an electron microscope. Viruses are too small to see with a regular microscope, so the invention of the electron microscope was a dramatic advancement in the world of medicine. However, it's very expensive and there's no way for a normal doctor to acquire one. The late Dr. Takano said an electron microscope could find the cause of the disease, but it seems his theory has been proven wrong. Even Mr. Takano was hoping an electron microscope would find it. She was even disappointed when she didn't uncover anything after all the autopsies she'd performed. Our research seems to be having its first snag. It's actually stalled our work for several weeks now, so we need to think about where to go from here. Which means they're either smaller than microscopic, or maybe there's something wrong with the specimen itself. What do you mean? For example, as you know, wild mice have tons of fleas on them, but you can't find fleas on dead mice, because when the mouse dies, the habitat dies as well. So if the host dies, the parasite's world will end too. That's right, just like you won't find a living human in a post-apocalyptic world. Therefore, we just have to look into the earth before it ends, right? That's true. However, we need to think about human rights. It's hard to look into a brain while the patient is still alive. Wink. Examining a living human's brain. No matter how you sugarcoat it, that bore very grave meaning. From a medical standpoint, it's necessary, but we have rules and morals in this world, and we have to advance medicine within such boundaries. There was a time when I was studying lobotomies for the betterment of mankind. I don't think I was wrong. However, could I ever be forgiven under ideas of ethics? I don't know. One day my judgment will be handed down by the devil. Whether I'm guilty or not, I have to accept it. Completely forgot that the reason Irie was chosen for this was because he hadn't, been convicted of medical misbehaviour in his past. So they knew that he was a guy with negligible ethics. As I reflected upon my past, I heard a voice. It was Mr. Kano. It was very clear and simple, yet it struck me with surprise. Understood. Let me prepare a world on the verge of death. What? I'm startled. Sometimes the phrase advancing medicine bore the whisper of the devil, tempting us to accept sacrifices. I heard that devil whisper. It's not that difficult. I just have to find a Hinamizawa resident who's about to die, that's all. But even if they're about to die, who'd be brave enough to provide their body for research while still alive? Don't worry about that. If they're dying anyway, we're just going to put them to sleep a little sooner. On paper, of course. The patient would be legally declared dead, even though they're still alive, and we'd perform an autopsy while they're still alive. That's impossible. Besides, if we perform neurological surgery, we have to do a circular incision on the cranial area. The family will notice the marks for sure. That's where we come in. I'll have the mountain dogs look for a patient in the local hospital that matches our needs immediately. All you have to do is wait with a knife and fork in your hands. I'll bring your meal right away. So fucked up. I really like Takano as a villain. I find her absolutely fascinating as the bad guy because, like, ultimately, I think if there's one thing that we learn from this, it's that most of the inverted commas villains are villainous because of trauma. Because Takano definitely is. She's definitely villainous because of trauma, which has affected her as she grew up. And it really tends to be like Satoko's parents. Obviously, her mum had mental issues. Her aunt and uncle are just straight up awful, as is Rina, and there are a few others who are like that as well, but a lot of the people we consider villains are so because of intergenerational trauma. Understood. Ms. Turano is my partner, there's no question about that, but I just can't trust her. It's her extremities as a researcher which contrast largely with mine. But are we so different? I'm here simply waiting with a knife and fork in my hands, just as she told me to. I just don't want to witness such a gruesome scene, that's all. What she's preparing for me now is exactly what I want. Who's the hypocrite? Not her. It's me. How can I say I'm different, knowing what I've done in the past? I performed lobotomies without the patient's consent, despite it being surgery that might affect their life forever. How is that different from what she's doing? I've never doubted my past achievements. However, when I look at her, I start to feel unease. Mr. Kano was talking to Okanogi in the intercom in my office. I'm sure she's telling him to come over so she can explain to him what was just discussed. I'm simply watching without stopping her. I begin to reflect on my past, to remember why I chose to become a doctor. Okay, we're gonna do the it's very clearly a hint saying, you know, go do the flashback. I'm just gonna check if there's any others. Okay, so we've got Jiro is required first. I'll do that. Satoshi. Okay, no. No. Go with your ears. Do this one next. I've wanted to become a doctor ever since I was little. Doctors make a lot of money. People look up to doctors. I think those are the kind of reasons I had. So when I played with my friends, I always acted like a doctor. I cleaned their wounds and applied ice packs when my friends sprained their ankles, using what I learned from household medical books. Everyone, including me, believed that I'd be a doctor one day. My family was poor, so they praised me for that goal. They told me that I needed to study a lot to become a doctor, so they borrowed some pseudo-medical books from the local library for me. The rental fees weren't cheap, so I would speed read one book in a day, and the next day, my parents would go back to the store to exchange it for a different book, saying they accidentally borrowed a book they'd already borrowed before. By doing so, my parents borrowed 2 books for the price of one. Of course, now I know those books were rather useless, but they were highly motivational just the same. My neighbours called me Dr. Kioski, and I was always picked for class health officer at school. Even my teachers helped me with the classes I needed to take to become a doctor. Of course, in reality, becoming a doctor isn't as easy as it might seem. I had to study diligently, and the path was most definitely rough. To become a doctor, one must attend college. Since my family was poor, I was told I wasn't allowed to go to an expensive private school, so I had to be admitted to a national public university. My grades weren't bad, but the admission rate to national public universities is very marginal. Especially since I wanted to go into medical school, my chances were even smaller. I studied like crazy. My only driving force was my childhood dream of becoming a doctor. The dream of becoming a doctor and to be looked up by everyone kept me going. Or looked up to by everyone. And I was admitted. I wasn't at the top of the list, but I made it in. I was finally at the starting point of making my childhood dream come true. My parents were thrilled. Neither my father nor mother went to college, so they were proud of their son getting into public medical school. They invited our relatives over to celebrate. Although it was a public university, tuition wasn't cheap, but they still had an extravagant celebration anyway. My father didn't express his emotions much. He always kept a straight face. He rarely voiced his opinion or took initiative on anything. My mother took care of everything, and he showed up last and left without saying a word. He was a typical stern and silent Japanese father at the time. That's why I was surprised to see him shedding tears of joy, and I cried along with him. He went around to all my relatives, or repeatedly slapping my back, saying how proud and lucky he was to have a son like me. He bragged about my achievements to all who would hear them. The celebration became my farewell party as I was about to leave for Tokyo. My father yelled "Banzai" repeatedly at the station as the train pulled away. I was a little embarrassed, but when I could no longer see my father, I could clearly recall the tears pouring down. The days of hellish studying and exams began after that. Some days I was tempted to just give up and submit myself to the lavish lifestyle of the city, but the letters from my family always encouraged me and gave me the strength to go on. My dream then was to open up my own clinic in my hometown so I could contribute to the region. I never even dreamed of getting involved with brains. One day I noticed a difference in the letter from my family. The letter said the usual things about how it was at home and asked how I was doing, but the postscript was what caught my attention. Your father has become really violent lately. Sometimes he turns the house upside down and I don't know what to do. I just couldn't picture him acting viciously. I was extremely surprised. Did something happen? But in the postscript, my mother said there was nothing she could think of. My mother and father had been together for a long time. They'd been together since well before I was born. So she noticed things that I couldn't. She couldn't even think of a reason why my father had become so violent. What happened? They got along so well. They were such a lovely couple. When I caused a problem for my mother when I was little, my father only bonked my head with his knuckle. Why was he acting this way towards my mother? Maybe there was some kind of misunderstanding between them. I was going home for the New Year. Maybe I could have a good talk with him then. But the situation was a lot more serious than I thought. On one cold winter day, I found my apartment door unlocked. I thought someone had broken in, but I found my mother in my apartment with her luggage. That's right. My mother could no longer take my father's fury and came to stay with me. This was back when people still believed in the proverb, a woman has no place to settle down all her life. She couldn't go back to her own family because they lived in the same region as my father, so she came all the way to Tokyo. I heard about my father's violence from my mother's own lips. She cried, saying she had no idea why such a quiet man changed like that. She said she wasn't ever going back to him. I didn't know what to do. I asked her if she could talk to him one more time, but the bruises on her body told me it was no use. To remember what happened afterwards is too much, so I'll be brief. After my mother left, my father thought she was having an affair and went over to the neighbour's house with a wooden sword. He was arrested. He was released immediately, but he assumed someone in the neighbourhood was hiding her, so he did the same thing repeatedly. He eventually reached the point of getting into fights with anyone he saw. In the end, he picked a fight with some young punks and ended up being beaten to death. My relatives gave my father a decent funeral, but my mother didn't attend. It's no use beating a dead horse. So nobody said anything negative about my father. Everyone was simply puzzled as to why he changed so much. What I heard from my relatives about my father's final days was a lot stranger than what I heard from my mother. My mother only told me about sudden rage and violence, but my relatives told me he also laughed and grew sad. Apparently he displayed several sudden fluctuations of emotion, especially so in his last years. They also told me he started to complain about headaches after an accident he had. My father was a construction worker. He had hit his head hard on a construction board during an accident at work. As we all know, head injury is always bad. He regained his consciousness quickly and seemed fine, but since the accident, he started to have headaches and behave abnormally. I sensed the connection between the accident and my father's changes, so I talked to my professor after I went back to Tokyo. I can't say for certain, but it sounds like it's possible your father suffered some kind of brain damage. There's a chance that blow to his head caused an organic mental disorder. Symptoms your father showed in his final years are similar to the delirium and mental fluctuations we've often seen in similar patients. Human behaviour is created by the brain, and if the brain is damaged, it can cause erratic behaviour. In other words, my father wasn't crazy. He was suffering from a disorder. If you can perform an autopsy on him, you should check his brain carefully. Maybe you'll find something like a tumour there. My father had already been cremated, so there was no way of knowing. But hearing about his behaviour, I knew for sure that was the only way to explain why such a quiet and gentle man would change. I tried to explain all this to my relatives to regain my father's honour, but hardly anyone understood. If his brain was damaged, he would have been dead, but he was alive and well, so the accident didn't damage his brain. It wasn't his brain that caused him to change, it was his mind. They simply brushed it off like that. This is the perception most people have about the brain. They don't realise the mind and the brain are connected. Most of the relatives didn't believe me, but there was one person who I really wanted to, anyway. That was my mother. As she got older, she grew senile, and she exaggerated the abuse she had had to endure. All she did was criticise my father, and every time she ended up crying, lamenting that she married him. They were a lovely couple. We were a great family. That's why I wanted to convey to her that she was misunderstanding the situation with my father. My father's behaviour was caused by his brain damage. What he did to her was awful, but he didn't want it to be that way. I told her that he wasn't at fault. But my mother didn't understand. Before she took her last breaths, I begged her to forgive my father, but her final words were, "Please don't bury me next to that man." My father wasn't at fault. He was simply the victim of a brain disorder. You don't complain to a person who's coughing because they have a cold, because coughing is just a symptom, and they should be sympathised with. In my father's case, the symptoms weren't as obvious as a cough. They took the form of changes in personality, which are much harder to recognise. If I'd studied the brain more, I could have explained it better to my mother so she could have understood him. Then they could have been a nice couple again in heaven. When I realised that, I cried. And I also realised there are plenty of people like my father in this world who are suffering from a disorder, yet are misunderstood and despised for it. And then I found out. About a miraculous cure for such disorders called a lobotomy. Ever since that day, I spent my days learning about the brain so I could help people who were suffering from mental illnesses. My father is gone, but if he was still alive, I could cure him myself, so he and my mother could reconcile. That's the main reason why I'm here. And then he went on to create lots of problems in RE medical things. Right, so we've got two options to choose here. Go with this one. I think it sort of follows on very naturally, more naturally from the last one. I was half asleep, so I didn't even hear the phone ringing nearby. After a while, I finally realised the phone was ringing, and a ringing phone means there's some kind of emergency. It's 2 in the morning. Who would even call me at this time of night? Hello, this is Irie. I'm sorry to bother you, Dr. Irie. It's Mr. Canon. She's never called me for a personal reason. At the Institute, she's ranked just below me, so she's basically responsible for running it. So for her to call me this late at night, it must be an emergency. Sorry it took me so long. Is it true that we have another terminal patient? Yes, I was hoping to find a living specimen, so this is perfect. I initially thought she'd abducted someone. The man had already been moved to the research area in the clinic's basement. Having been tied to the examination table, he's struggling against his restraints, but more as though he's deranged than actually resisting. I can't even understand what he's saying. He sounds angry, sorrowful, and like a child throwing a tantrum all at once. It's obvious that he's not in the right state of mind. Anyway, let's put him under anaesthesia. He might kill himself otherwise. I wanted to observe him a little longer, but I guess I have no other choice. One of the staff with the white gown got the anaesthesia ready. Even a normal person would struggle to escape a restraining table in this suspicious ring. This man's behaviour is at a normal level. I'm sure Rokunoki and his friends from the Mountain Dogs are the ones who captured him. Capturing a man in this state of mind couldn't have been an easy task. According to Takano, she ran into this patient on her way home from the clinic by accident. She brought him back here, tested him, and the result came back positive. Of course, I have no intention of just believing what she's telling me. But there's no question this man is at the terminal stage, and a live specimen is exactly what we need to research the syndrome. Who was this man, anyway? He had something wrapped in newspaper. What do you think it was in it? What is this? There's something wrapped in a bloody newspaper on a tray nearby. Wink. Looking at the blood-drenched paper, I can only imagine there's something gruesome inside of it. Wink. Yeah, Mr. Kano looked like she wanted to surprise me with something interesting. God, this is awful. It's a bloody right arm. The man on the table still has his. This right arm doesn't belong to him. So who does it belong to? I'm used to looking at things like this as a doctor, but the horrible cross-section makes me want to look away. It wasn't done according to a medically acceptable method, that's for fucking sure and certain. How's that for a good flashback, eh? It was obviously done out of cruelty. Hello to anyone else who also used to watch manga minx as a youth. Judging by the situation, we can assume this man cut off his arm. So he's the culprit behind the body dumping that's been occurring in the neighbourhood. At that point, there was no way of knowing who the right arm belonged to. But the next morning, the dismemberment murder of the dam construction site director was reported, and they mentioned that his right arm was still missing, so we learned who it belonged to. This man has a criminal record, and he's on probation. Yet he committed another crime. I bet he dismantled the body in order to hide it. I'm sure it depends on the circumstances, but he'll get more than just a few years in prison. So you won't hesitate to dissect a scumbag like him, right? Who knows? Maybe he was a scumbag before and became violent due to the syndrome, or maybe he'd gone straight but became violent again due to the syndrome. Former is one thing, but if it's the latter case, it's not his fault. That's why Hinamizawa syndrome is so terrifying. We can't tell if the syndrome is the cause of the crime, or if it's simply a problem of human nature. But what causes a defect of human nature in the first place? That was precisely the area of research. Hate the crime, not the criminal. Can criminals only be corrected by punishing them with imprisonment? If a person commits a crime because of a mental disorder, but then gets treatment, they're corrected. In other words, there are no crimes in this world, only patients awaiting treatment without anyone else being able to understand them. That's a massive oversimplification of things, if you ask me. In medieval times, patients with mental disorders were said to be possessed by demons, and they were either confined or killed. Centuries after, they were finally acknowledged as mentally ill people who need treatment. Perception can change with time. Even if they're called criminals now, maybe after several centuries, those criminals will be acknowledged as patients who are entitled to appropriate treatment. Explaining crimes through illness instead of malice. That's my life's work. Hinamizawa syndrome is a strange disease that can support my theory. Solving its mysteries is extremely important to me. To solve those mysteries, I need a medical sacrifice. It's an extremely sinful thing to do, but there's no way to unravel this without it. The Erie Institute was authorised to take such drastic measures of mystery. That's why I was asked about it so many times when I accepted the position of director. And finally, the opportunity is here. This will be the first step of our research on this strange disease. But even now I'm a little hesitant. I've opened up human bodies in many surgeries. What I'll be doing on this man is something very similar, but there's also something that's different. What I did before was part of treatment. I did it to save the patients' lives. I did it so the patients could have a better future. But what I'm trying to do here is the treatment. He'll die at the end of it. His death will be far from humane. I'm going to violate nature and force him to stay alive, while I open up his living brain. Truly gross. Confession time, I've been reading a lot of Hannibal fic recently because I'm in a very bad mood, and reading fic about unhealthy relationships helps me express that bad brain space, and that's where my brain went. So now you can all judge me as much as you want, either for my taste in fic or my taste in ways to vent and deal with bad brain space. Director Irie, are you listening? Sorry, could you repeat that? I believe it best that we submit the dissection proposal to Tokyo and request their assistance. He's not only alive, he's also in the terminal stage, so he's an extremely important specimen. We must conduct the dissection very carefully. That's true. You're right. Let's do as you say. I think we'll have a few days before the dissection, so I want to run some reaction tests once he's off the anaesthetic. Do you think that's safe? Even if he's restrained, we don't know what will happen. We finally have the opportunity to test a live specimen. We can't only look into his brain. Mr. Connor's unusual cheerfulness made me feel odd, as it should. Maybe her reaction is normal. Maybe I'm the one who's not reacting normally in this situation. I'm only here for the research, so I should be excited to have the opportunity to perform our first live dissection. But I'm still hesitant. How can I call myself a researcher? Researchers of the past were brave enough to cross the line, and that's how they accomplished many things. I've seen many brains. I've operated on them. I've lost patients too, but I never thought anything of it because I knew I did the right thing, even when my hard work was denied afterwards. If it paid me to think of that, then I just needed to advance the field of medicine to ensure their deaths weren't wasted. That's the true form of those advancing the field of medicine. Yet, why was my heart tormented so much just by changing the name from treatment to dissection? Does it mean I'm not man enough to emulate those great men of the past who opened the doors to new medicine? That I don't have the powers to develop new advances myself? Hey, what's the matter, Director? Are you feeling okay? Takano's pretending to be concerned about me, but she knows. She knows that I've got hiccups and still hesitating. And she's telling me I should be ashamed as a researcher for feeling that way. I shook my head to clear up sleepiness. Remember the resolve that brought me here to this day. I already have blood on my hands, but if I stop now, their lives will be wasted. Those who shed their blood can only rest in peace once they become the cornerstones of great research. I shook my head once more and reminded myself that I'm a researcher. No, I was just thinking. Mr. Connor, please make some arrangements with Tokyo and let me know when it's done. Okay, understood. This is really exciting. The least I can do is my best, so his life won't be wasted. If he bleeds, I can't waste even a drop of his blood. After scolding my staff for their indiscretion of discussing the dissection with such excitement, forgotten how to speak, I returned to my office. So now we go to the other bit of the story, which is where Rika comes in on the scientific end. Or not? Huh? No, I hit the wrong one again. Oh my god. I knew it was this one and my brain just shorted out. It was like... It's because of the declaration of war from Oishi. Brain just went on that. So now Rika returns. That very night, the head of the Furude family, the priest, gathered his wife and Rika together for a family meeting. In Hinayamazawa, it was tradition for the three families to gather and discuss the village's issue, so it was hardly unusual for big families like the Sanozaki family and the Kimiyoshi family to have meetings beforehand to sort out opinions amongst themselves. However, the Furude family had lost its branch families, so there were only 3 of them left. So until that day, they never had a family meeting at all. What is it? You're being so formal. Is it about the dam construction? The dam was the most important issue in the village at the moment. The wife naturally assumed the priest wanted to talk about the dam. For him to gather all of them together like that, it must be a huge decision he had to make. Perhaps he was going to talk about joining the pro-evacuation camp. No, it's not about the dam, but it's about something extremely important which concerns this village and perhaps all the ancestors of the village too. The Furude family had served in the priesthood of Oyashiro-sama, the guardian deity of the village, for generations. So for him, the head of the family, to start out that way, it must be something extremely important. Yet he said it wasn't about the dam, so what could he want to talk about? Sorry. I'm married into this family, so I want you and Rika, who carry the true blood of the Furude family, to listen very carefully. You two aren't normal human beings. I'm the reincarnation of Oyashiro-sama, right? Rika, you shouldn't say such things. Dear, let's talk about things like that without her. She's heard enough nonsense from the elderly people at the village hall already. I'm no longer going to do my high squeaky voice for Rika because it makes my voice keep dying. I'll give her the middle voice. What she just said about her being the reincarnation of Oyashiro-sama, that appears to be true. What? It's a rather long story. Please, just sit tight and listen to me. The wife had a dumbfounded expression on her face, not knowing what he was going to say, but Rika was completely relaxed, wearing her usual carefree expression. The priest started to talk after his wife calmed down. There's a disease in this village that has been here for many years. It's a special disease which only exists here in this area. Everyone who lives in this village has the disease. Not only the people who live here now, but all the people who ever lived here had the disease. What? But we're all perfectly healthy. I've never heard of a disease exclusive to the village. Calm down. As long as we're here in the village, the disease won't cause any problems. But once you move away from the village, that's when it starts to act out. Do you understand? How can you expect me to understand such a thing? I have no idea what you're talking about. It's the same as the curse of Oyashiro-sama. Rika said it so calmly while her mother became frustrated. I still don't have an answer to whether there's a supernatural element or not. Like, the disease is in Curse of Oyashiro-sama clearly the same thing, but then also you've got Hanyu and the demons, who are definitely supernatural. Strange and weird. That's right. They say that when you leave this village, you're cursed. It's just like that. In other words, the curse of Oyashiro-sama, which our ancestors have feared for generations, is actually a disease that only exists in this village. How could that be possible? We've left the village before. Other villages too. Some have gone on business trips and some even travelled to foreign countries. True, but that's probably because the disease has weakened over a long time, so it was going to disappear eventually. But the business with the dam disrupted that process. Everyone knew that during the dam war, the entire village was aflame with agitation. Such excitement and emotional instability makes the disease stronger. Oh, I still don't know what you're trying to say. What we thought was a curse all this time was actually caused by disease? That's right. All the rules Oyashiro-sama came up with were to protect the villagers from the disease. No way. Then Oyashiro-sama is actually a disease, not a god? How could that be? How can I explain that to the Furude family ancestors? Calm down. The faith in Oyashiro-sama won't change. The fact that Oyashiro-sama is watching over Hinamizawa will remain the same. Just means the disease producing his curse was in the village since long ago, that's all. I won't accept that. How can I explain that to our ancestors? This is a desecration of the Furude family's age-old traditions. No, this is a desecration of Oyashiro-sama. Who told you such a thing? This isn't acceptable. In the first place, can you prove such a disease actually exists? I can. Kind of proof. Who gave it to you? The people from the Ministry of Health and the National Institute of Infectious Disease Prevention. They've already found the pathogen and they're searching for a cure right now. I saw the documents and the samples last week. The people at the MOH call it Hinamizawa syndrome. No way. As long as you lead a normal life, the syndrome is harmless. But once you go far from Hinamizawa, or if you become emotionally unstable, it's easy for the disease to manifest itself. So that's what I've been referring to when I say that XYZ person is possessed. When the disease acts out, you can be possessed by your own delusions, and in the worst case scenario, you can go mad. They discovered this disease during the war. A distinguished scholar noticed only the soldiers from Hinamizawa came down with an abnormal disease, and he's been researching it all these years. They explained some details of this research, but I'm sorry, they're too complicated for me to explain. If you don't believe what I'm saying, why don't you go listen to them yourself? At first I was indignant too, wondering how they dared to blaspheme Oyashiro-sama and spout such nonsense. The Irie clinic was built to study the syndrome. It appears to be just a clinic on the outside, but it's actually a secret research centre for studying the syndrome. Secret research? That's ridiculous. If it's actually backed by the MOH, why aren't they doing it out in the open? Well, I guess they can't. For example, think about leprosy victims who are misunderstood and exiled. They're still misunderstood and discriminated against today, in fact. The whole country finds out about this and thinks that everyone in Hinamizawa who's contracted this weird disease can go mad at any moment. It'll turn into chaos. The MOH has taken that into consideration and is working on developing a cure while keeping the disease a secret. Don't get me wrong though, they aren't trying to put us on display or anything. They're trying to eliminate this disease and free the village from it. It was a different story long ago when we supported ourselves, but nowadays it's impossible not to leave the village. If a simple act of leaving the village can trigger the disease, you realise how dangerous it is for the villagers, right? I'm repeating myself now, but in the recent dam protests, the whole village entered a strong excited state, which is very bad for the Hinamizawa syndrome. If some villagers go crazy and do something horrible, it will be all over the media. That's right. If that happens, it will be too late. But how can I believe this? Are you sure we're dealing with people from the government? Are you sure you aren't being tricked? I don't blame you for not being able to believe it. They said we can come take a look at their facility anytime. I've seen it before, and I know that no mere fraud could have set up something like that. Even the big hospitals in GORE don't have such large-scale equipment. If you can't believe what I just told you, you should go to the research centre yourself and ask. They can explain it better than I can. They said if their explanations are good enough, they can explain it to you at the NRI in Tokyo, or even at the MOH's main office. I'm not reading all of these long names. My brain is failing and so is my voice. Whether I believe it or not, how are we related to that? Say that the Furude family inherited the blood of Oyashiro-sama, and it is also said that if a girl was born for 8 continuous generations, that 8th generation girl would be the reincarnation of Oyashiro-sama. Meep. That's right. I'm the 7th, and Rika is the 8th generation. But what does that have to do with the disease? The Hinamizawa syndrome is caused by a type of parasite, although they're very tiny. You can't even see them with the naked eye. They say there's a sort of leader amongst these parasites. Are you saying that's the Furude family? It appears that the leader of these parasites is passed down through the generations only by people with a direct bloodline to the Furude family. In other words, in the previous generation it was you, and now it's Rika. Meep. That's ridiculous. Absolutely ridiculous. Why would it be something as disgusting as parasites in the first place? Oh, calm down. I'm not good at explaining things. Please have the experts explain it to you. According to them, studying this parasite is necessary in order to research the disease. No, I won't have anything to do with such suspicious research, and Rika won't either. I'm telling you to calm down. They think that Hinamizawa syndrome acts out when separated from the parasite leader, not the village itself. When you were little, do you remember villagers telling you that you had psychic powers? You were able to cure elderly people who got migraines after taking a long trip. That's the proof that you were carrying the parasite leader. The Furude bloodline has the power to cure people with a disease. To discover a cure, it's extremely important that we participate in their research. They study me. Will the villagers be saved? That's what they say. And all the villagers are infected? Me? Everyone else? Stoko too? Yes, not only the people who live in the village, but their relatives in Okuniya too. We're talking thousands of people. That's why the MOH has spent so much money to build a specialised research centre. I object. How can you let Rika be a sacrifice for something that suspicious? I don't mind. If Satoko can be saved, I don't mind being sacrificed. I really don't. Oh, you be quiet, Rika. I absolutely refuse. I'll go talk to them and refuse them directly. I won't let them kill Rika in some crazy experiment. Besides, she's the one and only heir of the Furude family. What if something happens to her? The Furude family will die right there. Don't you see that? You need to think more about our family. That's why the villagers call you an opportunist. After all, don't you think it's odd? The MOC is trying to submerge the village, and the MOH is trying to cure a disease. What in the world is going on? The MOH has warned that this disease could be triggered by a change in environment, so they're actually trying to have the Ministry of Construction stop the dam construction plan. You really should go to the research centre. Why would they build such a large facility in a location that could be submerged? Rika let out a big yawn. I feel the same. It was long past bedtime for a little girl like her. I'm going to bed now. Dad, please let them know I'm willing to participate, okay? Rika, you can't make such a decision without consulting me. Rika, wait, Rika! And yet she absolutely can. Okay. Green carrier, we can do this one, or we can do I really hate this whispering. Let's do this one next. And then we'll do the research. The gathering place inside of the Furude Shrine is in fact the headquarters of the Onagafuchi Guardians. Normally a shrine would be a calm and quiet place, but there are anti-dam signs everywhere, making it very obvious what this location has become. There are over 30 members of the Guardians here at the moment, and are having a heated conversation about their plans for the future. Although this meeting place is on the Furude family's property, it's a community facility, so it closes at 9. Of course, sometimes the discussion gets so heated that it goes on past closing time, but meetings are supposed to end by 9. If a discussion ends early, they usually chit-chat until that time. That's what usually happens. Of course, they mostly talk about the dam even when they chit-chat. They talk about someone's mistreatment at the government office, or someone getting arrested unjustly, or complain that people at the dam construction site are too violent. Since it's idle chatter, the topics are slightly emotional, and because of that, there was a great deal of bad-mouthing the Hojos. Then she threw the circulation notes away. Can you believe that? Oh, that woman is crazy. Just the other day she got into a huge argument with Makino's grandmother at the trash pickup. You know, the husband is rude too. He's so irrational. Did you see him at the explanatory meeting? That was bad, huh? Can't believe they're still here. I wish they'd just leave. He said something about money. It's absolutely no shame. No. If you talk about being irrational, his wife is the same or even worse. It must be hereditary. I see their daughter shopping quite often, so I used to say hello to her, but she never replied. Can you believe that? So I got tired of it, and I don't say anything to her anymore. Their son always looks so depressed, doesn't he? By now, the Hojo family has become the enemy of the whole village. Wonder why the son's depressed and the daughter doesn't say anything. Bad-mouthing the Hojo family was the greatest shared topic that anyone could easily contribute to. If you had known how powerful the three families were, especially the Sonozaki family, and if you'd known Orio's character, you wouldn't have said the things he did. The Hojo couple are residents here. Though they were never very enthusiastic about the council activities, they should have known what kind of person Orio is. He could have imagined just what would happen to him if he talked to her that way. Yet he let his anger take over and voiced his unpleasant feelings. So most people think the Hojo family brought their isolation upon themselves. If they wanted to negotiate with the government regarding the move, they should have done so privately. Yet he was foolish enough to express himself at a public gathering like that. So not too many sympathised with the Hojo family. Ever since the big fight at the explanatory meeting, the Sonozaki family has looked at the Hojo family as their enemy and started to go after them. That caused the other Prodan families to go quiet, fearing they'd be made into scapegoats too, and those who wanted to leave were bitterly forced to give up. Even those people started criticising the Hojo couple, saying they could have gotten their compensation to leave if the two hadn't picked that reckless fight. Both the anti-dam and pro-dam people hate the Hojos now, and the family has become even more isolated. Moreover, the Hojos are both very aggressive. They should have stayed quiet until at least things had settled down, but they didn't. That alienated the handful of people who took pity on them as well, so now nobody even says anything to them. All of that was immediately obvious by listening to the foul talk here and there at the gathering place. Rika always helps out by putting the teacups away, so I'm sure she hears what they say as well. One of the Hojo family members they're bad-mouthing is Rika's friend, Satoko. It hurts to think about what Rika feels while hearing that. As priest of the Furude Shrine, should I let this continue? Ayashiro-sama is a god who makes peace between enemies. When the humans and demons fought, Ayashiro-sama descended from heaven and mediated between both sides. As the caretaker at the shrine, I must do something before it goes too far. I'm sitting next to Matsuriya, who is spitefully disparaging the Hojo family. So that ass was talking shit to me. Who the hell cares? He'll be cursed by Ayasha-sama, that's for sure. The elderly people cheer on as they listen to her speak. If I barge in now, I have a feeling it won't be a peaceful conversation. But I have to make up my mind. As priest of the Furude Shrine, and for the sake of Rika's friend, Satoko. Misorio, don't you think you've said enough by now? Huh? The hell are you trying to tell me? Well, I'm sure Hojo didn't really mean what he said. Isn't it a bit much for this kind of treatment to go on for so long? Shut up! You heard what he said, didn't you? Weren't you pissed? He pissed me off? Shit! Oreo is the head of the Sonozaki family, the heir to the demons. She never forgives anyone who stands against her, so there's no way she would even listen to what I'm trying to say. Oreo and the others became furious and refused to listen to me. I also mentioned that the dam construction plan will be cancelled soon, so they should calm down already. I say that because the staff at the area clinic told me the government is putting some kind of pressure on the Ministry of Construction. But thinking that I'm being an opportunist, seeing criticism of me began to circulate the ring. After that, I realised I'd become branded as a fence-sitter. If the demons are willing to listen, then there's a chance to make peace. But how can I make peace with people who refuse to listen? I destroyed their mood, so I just had to give up and shut my mouth. Then I felt a little hand on my back. Rika, it's getting late, why don't you go home? No matter how hard we try, we can't reach them. Rika looked into the distance while she spoke. The evil of this corrupted village is probably beyond the means of those of us living in that mug, but I won't lose hope. Surely someone who will destroy this stagnation will arrive. Very soon. I know. Her eyes shone as if seeing a future that only the maiden of the Furude Shrine could see. Ooh, Rika. Right. What's the one we're looking for? This one. Right. Now that we've established the Furude thing, we're gonna do all the medical things. Furude, Miss Furude, thank you so much for waiting. We just finished the last test. I'm now saving every time I go in because I don't know how long it's going to take and I don't seem to be able to save in between fragments. So, she'll be back soon. I hope she's able to help. Of course. Rika will help the whole village. I think we'll be able to come up with a treatment soon. We're still looking into the structure, but we're finding out how important Rika is to the villagers. People with more serious conditions can't stabilise themselves, but we found out if they get close to the queen carrier, they generate some kind of substance in the brain. The substance has a calming effect, and it seems to have the power to bring their symptoms down. If we can produce this substance, it'll end up making a powerful treatment. I see. Rika has that kind of power. You shouldn't be surprised. People say that maidens of the Furude Shrine have the psychic power to calm both souls and demons, don't they? Even before we discovered it, it was already recorded in the history of the last few hundred years. It, only just struck me one or two, fragments ago, the degree to which, the fact that Takano was really the person who spurred the paranoia and mistrust, definitely in Reina, and to a degree in Shion as well. Just the level to which he was deliberately fucking things up. That only just struck me how intense that is, and how yeah. that yeah. Got to me a little bit. Oops, I hit the wrong button. I apologise. That's true. I'm impressed with how wise people were back then. Meep, the tests are all done. Good, Rika, good work. You must be getting tired. Why don't you take this and go get something to drink? Meep, they took a lot of my blood, so I need to replenish. Rika took the 100 yen coin that was offered to her and ran out into the hallway. I appreciate Rika's help. If she hadn't offered her assistance, our research wouldn't have progressed this far. Rika's very concerned about her friend with the syndrome. She said she wants to help because of her. Doctor, please take Rika's feelings into account. Of course. We're taking up her precious time every Sunday, so we'll make sure to get to the bottom of this. We may have to put her through some rather rough experiments, but I hope you'll understand. We'll never harm her in any way, though. She's such an important person. She's the reincarnation of Ayashiro-sama, after all. I wonder how people back then found out about the syndrome, and how they knew the Furude family were the descendants of the Queen. I'm truly impressed. By the way, there's something I have to ask you. I'd like to ask you for permission to collect a cerebrospinal fluid. And there's a chance we'll have to drill a hole in her skull to examine the inside of her head. A hole in her skull? Of course, we'll take every precaution. Rika is the one and only Queen Carrier. We'll make sure that she's safe. Her safety is our priority. Of course, since Rika is a girl, we won't shave her entire head. However, we'll have to ask her to stay at the clinic a little longer so we can keep our eyes on her. She can still receive visitors, of course. You're more than welcome to attend the examination. I'm sure she'll be more relaxed to have someone she knows nearby. Do you really need to perform this examination? Is it really safe? I can't absolutely guarantee her safety for either collecting cerebrospinal fluid or for drilling a hole in her skull. There's always the off chance that something might go wrong. Also, Rika may suffer from some physical and emotional discomfort. Even if it's this important, we can't perform it without the parents' consent. Actually, I've already talked to Rika about it. What did she say? She said it's fine. I've explained to her the possibility of danger, but we still need your consent. Sometimes Rika truly believes she's the reincarnation of Ayashiro-sama, so maybe she feels obligated to sacrifice herself for the villagers. What an impressive child. Could you please let me talk to my wife? She understands the situation, but I still need to explain it to her. Sure, of course. Please talk it over with her. So this examination is an extremely important step in the process of stamping out the syndrome, right? Yes, it will solve the mysteries of Hinamizawa syndrome for sure. At least it'll be the first step. As I already explained, if something happens to the Queen Carrier, the whole community here may be in danger. In other words, it's possible the whole village could end up with terminal symptoms. That's right. According to the studies, within 48 hours of the death of the Queen Carrier, everyone with the disease will become dangerously sick. We must prevent that from happening no matter what. That explains why Takano makes a deliberate point to kill Rika in order to fuck everyone else up. If something happens to Rika, the whole village will go insane. Yes, it's our job to prevent that. Might seem ironic that we have to put your daughter in danger, but this is the only way to stamp out the syndrome. Dr. Irie, I hope you'll succeed in that examination. As I said, there are no guarantees in medicine. Sure. Irie answered with a nod, interrupting Chikano's vague response. I'll succeed. I'll save Rika, and the villagers too. I promise. Okay, I'll talk to my wife. I'll let you know our decision. Yes, thank you. After Rika and her father left, Takano started to laugh. What is it? What's so funny? Oh, nothing. I just thought it was amusing to get permission from both the patient and her parents beforehand. Rika is going through something she doesn't have to. I thought I should, as a courtesy. I would have gotten consent from the man last year had he been in a normal condition. Are you being tormented with guilt ever since you started your research here? What do you mean? This type of teasing was normal from Takano, but maybe she'd gone a little too far. Irie made it clear how displeased he was to hear that. You can only research Hinamizawa syndrome by using living beings. You feel guilty continuing your work because of that. There's guilty feelings of necessity. Whether it's murder or dissection, the fact that you're taking someone's life is the same. We have to accept that, and at the same time devote ourselves to research. That's an extremely impressive theory you have there. Then, Dr. Irie, how many times have you gotten consent before you cut into people's brains? Irie didn't think Takano knew about that. How many brains have you cut up without consent, using your selfish theory that people commit crimes due to mental disorders as your excuse? That is... common sense changes with time. Back then, doctors didn't need to explain anything or get consent beforehand, so I don't think you have to be concerned about the past. It'd be a problem now, but it was okay back then, so that's fine. But you feel guilty, and that's why you want to get consent from Rika beforehand, and why you wanted to get it from him, right? If that's not true, in the first place, the treatment and dissection are... Listen, boy. What you want is a stamp of forgiveness known as prior consent, right? What you want is some stamp of forgiveness, some deception to fill your heart so you can atone for your past sins. Ah. Abruptly does a choke. If you regretted what you've done, then you never get involved with brains again. Yet you're dragging your regrets behind as you continue to deal with brains, guilty all the while. If you truly acknowledged your actions as a sin, then you'd have refused to accept the appointment as director. Isn't that right, boy? I don't need to listen to this. Excuse me. You must listen. The field of medicine is constantly won in battles against our errors, ethics, and social values. When Dr. Takano discovered the existence of the syndrome, the people in power at the time just disregarded their own ignorance and scoffed at his foresight, but he didn't stop researching until he collapsed. He believed that someday he'd be acknowledged. Even if it was after he died, he still believed in it. He could do that only because of how strong his conviction was. If it wasn't for that, he would have given up. A strong will is what keeps research going. Only the most determined can achieve a result. But you don't have that. You're a coward who still can't decide if he should be proud or ashamed of his achievements. How could you accept the position of director with such a half-hearted determination? You knew from the beginning that this research couldn't be brought to fruition without adding further blood to your already stained hands. I don't know what to say. Maybe I am half-hearted. Then why don't you resign? You'll still have the obligation to keep things secret, but at least you won't have to feel guilty anymore. You may be my partner, but you're also simply a person who is requested by my client. Now that this research institute is fully developed, you aren't needed. If you don't even have the necessary determination to do research to begin with, you're an especially useless partner. I'll never quit researching. I'm not afraid of guilt or regret. My conviction is what will take me to the future. Just like Dr. Takano succeeded, I'll succeed alone. That's impressive. However, though my determination may not come close to yours, I too have will, and that's why I'm here. As you said, I already had blood on my hands. After I arrived in Hinamizawa, they got even bloodier, so I can't just run from my responsibilities. Probably continue to be tormented by my unatoned sins, but I won't run. I'll get to the bottom of Hinamizawa syndrome. That's the least I can do for all the people who gave their life to the research, and for those who will give their lives from now on. Irie wore a determined look on his face. He appeared different from even a moment before, when he was baffled by Takano having brought up those painful memories. For a short while, Irie's eyes displayed a strong will, and then he turned around. Probably get consent for Rika's examination, so please start preparing for it. Yes, I understand, Director. They got the consent the following week. So we're going to continue with this one. Where is it? Here we go. Plans for Satoko's dissection are moving right along. I don't want Satoshi to be sad. I feel pity for Satoko in her harsh circumstances. I'm still struggling with how much I have to sacrifice for the sake of research. Irie? Eh? Sorry. What is it, Rika? One of my friends has been in the clinic for a long time. Do you think she has Hinamizawa syndrome? Who told you that? No one. I just thought about it. So what do you think, Irie? Does Satoko have Hinamizawa syndrome? Rika is on our side. There's nothing I have to hide from her. Actually, I probably shouldn't keep anything from her. Yes. The problems with her parents and then their sudden deaths, it was all too much for her to bear. Maybe that was what triggered it. What did the test results say? L5. She seems perfectly fine on the surface, but her emotions are extremely unstable. Since the other day, she's even been refusing to meet with Satoshi. Satoshi told me. He's worried that it's taking a long time for Satoko to get better. Irie, what will happen to Satoko? Satoko is Rika's best friend. How can I tell her that we're planning to dissect her? However, even if I don't say anything, she already knows that Satoko's situation is extremely poor. Didn't you find out a lot of things when you examined me? Sure, of course. We're even testing medicine which might be able to control the symptoms. Can't you give that medicine to Satoko? I thought about it, but it's too dangerous. We're still in the trial stages and trying to gather more data. We can't use it on someone who's still in a delicate situation. Like Satoko. Sorry, I got distracted there. Then, if you won't try that medicine, what will happen to Satoko? She spoke as if aware of our plans for Stoker. No, she must actually know. I told her about most of my research. She's more mature than she looks, so it'd be easy for her to figure out. Do a save. If there's even a 1% chance of Stoker getting better, then I think we should take that chance. It's extremely risky. Worst case, she could immediately display terminal symptoms and hallucinate, or potentially lose her consciousness and spend the rest of her life just staring blankly at a wall. Either one would be too cruel a fate for her. So are you saying it's better to have her die in her sleep? Irie, just like Takano says, there are no guarantees in medicine, but if we don't do anything, Stoker will die for sure. I think it's clear what we should do. That's true. You're right. But I know too well. C-103, the medicine that's being tested, may not even be something that can be used. It may not even have a 1% chance of success. Worse, I can't even imagine what kind of tragic end she'd meet if her body rejects the medicine. That's why I'm tempted to believe it'd be far more merciful to feed her favourite food, let her fall gently asleep, and after that, dissect her while she dreams. I don't want to admit it, but Takano is right. I'm being indecisive and showing a lack of resolve. How effective could the medicine made by someone like that really be? So, because it was medicine I created myself, I couldn't even believe there might be a 0.1 chance of success. I think we can believe in it. She spoke as if she read my mind. Surprised, I raised my head up to look at her, and found her giving me a reassuring look I never would have imagined someone her age capable of. People's lives depend on your job. It's almost absurd that a human being can control life and death like that. I can't even imagine the pressure. Her voice hasn't changed, but I feel like Rika's admonishing me, almost as if she knows what it's like to be responsible for human lives. Guilt and regret are a part of that. That's why you can't use the medicine on Stoker. Isn't that right? Takano said the same thing when she criticised me earlier. I'm being criticised again. But that's why I can trust you with Stoker. Huh? Human lives are precious. You understand that very well, and that's why you do what you do. Without knowing that, how could you heal people? Do you think I trust medicine created by Takano, who thinks humans are just her guinea pigs? Ha ha. I shouldn't have laughed, but I couldn't help it. I felt like I should laugh. If both you and Takano each produce different medicine, I think yours would be the one to cure her, because your medicine came from your heart. Your will to heal people is what cures them. You're absolutely right. I can't believe you're admonishing me about medicine. I let you use my body for Stoker. Everything you took out of me is from her. If you created that medicine with the knowledge of how precious human lives are, then of course it will work on Stoker. Do Shrine Maidens take confession? If they do, she's doing a great job at being a Shrine Maiden at this age. This will be a gamble. The question is whether Stoker will accept it. We don't need to tell her. Learning of the Hinamizawa syndrome will only dredge up the deep scar on her heart again. What did she mean by those words? When I realised it later, I was surprised by how thoughtful and perceptive she was. Let's stop plans for the dissection. We're going to give Stoker Hojo C-103. I'll do my best to increase the chance by even 1%. Don't worry, it'll work. You shouldn't be so optimistic. I know it'll work. It's already decided. That's a very reassuring prophecy from the Rude Shrine's Shrine Maiden. Go for it, yay! Oh, Rika. I have that reaction like all of them. Go, ooh, Stoko. Oh, Reina, Mion, Shion. I mean, arguably Mion's like suffered the least, so. I think it's H170 is next, but. Okay, we can do this one. The lights came on in the meeting room as the slideshow ended, and all the auditors began to applaud, praising the Irie Institution's dramatic accomplishments. Wonderful, absolutely wonderful. To be honest with you, I wasn't expecting too much from this Hinamizawa syndrome research. Figured that even if there was progress, it'd be 3 steps forward and 2 steps back every decade. Oh my, how impressive it is to achieve so much in such a short period of time. This is all thanks to you, Director Irie. Oh no, this is all because of the staff that supported me, and Mr. Kano too. Don't be so humble. Director Irie is a genius in the field of neurology. After all, he's also produced greater achievements than any other doctor when it comes to the brain. Oh, that's true. Not many doctors as young as you with nearly as much experience operating on brains. Congratulations, Lieutenant Colonel Irie. Now I can go back to Tokyo with my head held high. I'm honoured we gave you something good to take back with you, Tomitake. And by the way, could you please stop calling me Lieutenant Colonel? I just can't get used to it. I almost prefer Risa at this point. I bet you do, huh? You sure were a huge help. You're the one who secured funding for our research, even when we couldn't produce feasible results. We couldn't have done this without you. It wasn't any trouble, but really, the results you presented today are just brilliant. Not only have you found the cause of the syndrome, you've also provided a clear path towards future research. We're looking forward to hearing more progress when we come again next time. I'm sure the Tokyo office will quit bothering us about cutting your budget with these sorts of results. After all, we nearly lost our budget for the canned coffee we provided to you all, didn't we? Tomitake, make sure you report our progress to Tokyo well enough that they give us enough funding to hold a party. I'm getting nothing but the stick, so it's time for the carrot. We'll be happiest if that carrot comes back in the shape of funding. And with that congenial atmosphere, our routine audit was over. Irie was surrounded and being questioned by NIID workers who joined the auditors. Takano, congratulations. I can't really say this that loud, but all the progress I've seen tonight is thanks to your hard work. Thank you, Jiro. Jiro and I are the only ones here who know that strings were pulled in order to create the Irie Institute, so only Jiro can understand what I had to go through. But I've only just risen to the stage for my research. My opponent and I are finally in the same arena, that's all. The critical fight comes after this, and it should be getting even more exciting in the future. By the way, Manager Nakagawa told me to tell you he wants you to hold a presentation in Tokyo. Even the alphabet board wants you to come meet with them. So, fun fact, one of the like background bits of this is that there's like this secret society that thinks Japan should return to the good old days. And I was reading for class about a series of essays about how ethnicity and race and religion sort of intertwine, and how religion is used to create ethnicity and race. And one of them was about Shintoism in Japan, and talking about how Shintoism was presented in such a way that it was viewed as like a glorious Japanese past in a sort of nationalistic way. And I read that and I was like, I know that one from video games. Anyway, I guess they want to hear this directly from you. Oh my, isn't having you explain enough? I don't think that's what they mean. I bet they want to meet such a pretty researcher in person, maybe. My, aren't you being silly, Jiro? Excuse me, Major Takano, there's a phone call for you from Tokyo. Thank you for holding. This is Takano. Hey, how are you doing? Koizumi, thank you for taking time to call me. You know, I heard you made a significant breakthrough, Mio. So we had to call to congratulate you. Thank you very much. Yes, thanks to your support, we've been able to accomplish the first step of identifying the microbe that causes Hinamizawa syndrome. I see. Great job, Mio. I'm sure Mr. Takano is very happy in heaven right now. That's a little too early to say. My grandfather was attempting to go beyond merely identifying the cause of the syndrome. His work was about showing the possibility of human thoughts actually being controlled by parasitic agents in our bodies. Only when that is proven will his research be recognised for the great achievement it is. When we're able to explain all thoughts and religions with parasites, the world is going to be tossed into chaos. How interesting. I can just imagine how those religious big shots will react once they find out the leaders are parasites. How interesting. I'd love to see that. I won't die until you show that to me, Mio. Please don't say that. Do look forward to it, though. I'll make sure that this research will spread shock throughout the world. Then the whole world will finally realise how great my grandfather was, and they'll be fighting each other to read over the documents he left behind. Only then can I say that I've repaid my debt to him. I'm a little envious of Takano. I don't want money, you know. I don't mind getting rid of half of what I have. Just wish I had a grandchild to carry on my legacy. Thank you. Those words mean a lot to me. By the way, I sent you a present. It's a nice bottle of wine for you to celebrate with. I didn't know your address, so I sent it to the clinic. However, they told me they're having a difficult time importing it, so it may take a little while. But when it comes, please have a party with the people who helped you. Celebratory wine? Well then, I wonder what sort of expensive sort of drink Koizumi will be sending us. Oh, it's not that kind of expensive. Do you remember me? Takano used to keep a particular bottle of wine. I remember. That's right. My grandfather kept a certain bottle of wine. I don't know if he bought it himself or if someone gave it to him, but he treasured it, and he always said he'd opened it when his research finally gained recognition. I was a child then, so I don't even remember what brand it was, but Mr. Koizumi would know. He went through all the trouble to find the same bottle of wine for this special occasion. For the first time in a while, Takana felt the sunny warmth she experienced during her time with her grandfather. Thank you very much, Uncle Koizumi. I like it when you call me that, Mia. I don't feel like you're speaking to me when you say, Mr. Koizumi. I can't help but smile along with him, because I think Tomitake and Irie were just having a similar exchange. If you like it that way, then I'll be happy to call you that when there's nobody around. I'll be happier if you call me that even in front of people. I don't know exactly how old he is, but if he can laugh so energetically, he'll live for many more years to come. I guess the saying about living a long life is true after all. Takano and I both wished you were truly part of our family. We really did. My grandfather had his own family, of course, but because he was so into his research, he became estranged from his wife. They were legally married, but lived separately. I never met his family when I was a child. I only met them after he committed suicide. During his latter years, my grandfather went into psychological despair and began to look at his life with cynicism. His condition became worse over time, and he was shocked at his own dementia. He was afraid of living while his consciousness degraded, so he jumped off the rooftop of the hospital. Only my name was in his suicide note. None of his family member names were in it. That's when all his relatives showed up and took everything my grandfather left behind. They were afraid I was going to get his estate. They had lawyers and all that, so I backed down. I asked for everything in the study in return. Those idiots don't understand the value of my grandfather's research. They're actually happy to strike a deal out of court, and they could also get rid of the piles of papers and gels with human organs in them. They never even showed up once when he was alive, yet, like hyenas, they appeared after his death. I'd never let them put their hands all over my grandfather's research. Fortunately, I was able to protect my grandfather's soul from their tainted hands. Okay, I'll get going here. If there's anything you need, be sure to call Uncle Koizumi, okay? I'll do anything for my granddaughter. Thank you, Uncle Koizumi. I'll work even harder. Okay. I think I'm gonna do uh 70 page 1 discontinuation. Here we go. We'll do this one and then I'm gonna quit for the night because my voice is dying. C103's implementation on Stoko was going well so far. It wouldn't make any difference to me if the experiment failed. However, Irie's extraordinary focus and attention to the experiment has avoided Stoko Hojo hallucinating or turning into a vegetable during the experiment. Surprisingly, we see prospects of her returning to normal life despite reaching L5. C103 still has many issues, but this experiment proved that even a person who has reached L5 can be cured. I didn't believe in it at first, but I guess I have to acknowledge Irie's hard work. Only Irie could have done this. He was tormented by naive humanism and didn't want to make mistakes. That's why he felt obligated to cure Stoko Hojo. The reason why I dislike Irie isn't because of his achievements or abilities, but because of that weakness. But this time I had to praise him for it. I saw your report. I must tip my hat to you. No, I only did my job as a researcher. If that means fulfilling my duty as a doctor as well, then nothing could please me more. It's hardly an exaggeration to say that Stoko is now our most valuable specimen. After all, she's the first human to reach L5 and live. That's true. We'll let her go back to her life and keep our eyes on her. I'm going to tell her to come here every Sunday for a checkup. But how are you going to explain it to her that she has to give herself a C103 shot 3 times a day and that she has to come here every Sunday? She has no subjective symptoms. I'm still trying to come up with a good excuse. I think I'll tell her that I wanted to help me with my research. She has to give herself shots daily and to come here every Sunday for a checkup. I'll pay her for helping me or something like that. I guess Irie is determined to cure Stoko Hojo no matter what. He seems determined to keep her off the dissection table. He and I are in different positions, but I don't have any complaints about his naive ideals, as long as they translate directly into passion for our research. If his plans can be put into effect and produce a different result than dissection would, then they'll still be useful to the overall understanding of the Hinamizawa syndrome. I have nothing against Stoko Hojo. It's only that I see her as a research specimen. If she can be useful in that capacity without being dissected, that's perfectly fine with me. We have to get permission from a guardian to give her shots 3 times a day. After her parents died, her aunt and uncle have been taking care of her, right? Maybe I'll go talk to them. I hope they agree to her involvement in such suspicious research. Oh, don't worry. I'm sure they'll be happy to once they realise they'll receive this amount of money every month for it. Do we have enough money? Sure, as long as we can produce documents that'll convince Jiro. Okay, then I'll work on that. Also, we'll need to take action to prevent stressing Satoko. We don't want her to return to L5. I hear her aunt and uncle are very mercenary. Perhaps we can handle them with cash. Plan to provide my help with their guidance too. I've heard Satoko isn't getting along with her aunt and uncle. Never thought that'd affect us in any way. But now, Irie has to deal with them. Maybe he's developed some kind of sense of responsibility or duty as her guardian. I don't really care. The more responsible he feels, the more progress our research makes. That'll be a plus for me. By the way, I saw the report on H170. Oh, compared to your success, it's nothing, but I guess it was some kind of accomplishment. It's honestly ironic. The same research centre that's produced the remedy to save it from derangement has developed a dangerous drug that could instantly induce it. Irie wasn't involved in the H170 research. That was my work. In fact, even if I asked him, he wouldn't have agreed to be involved. This dangerous reagent was developed during the process of uncovering the mechanisms behind how the pathogens controlling Satoko's brain could include induced derangement or paranoia in their host. To put it bluntly, injecting H170 into a patient with Hinamizawa syndrome forced them to express terminal symptoms. It threw the brain into a simulated state of agitation, intentionally forcing the pathogen to grow unstable. If we continue researching like this, it'll be possible to drive anyone with Hinamizawa syndrome violently insane at any time. Studying the mechanism behind that will help solve the syndrome's mysteries. So this study on H170 will be extremely important to future research. Also, this medicine has military applications as the client requested. At this point, there's absolutely no use for it, but once our research progresses a bit further, this H170 could be spread at the right moment to cause a certain type of reaction. Compared to a killer virus, it seems like a useless pathogen, but there's no way to detect it in a dead body, and it makes it look as though the person just went insane spontaneously, so it must have some useful applications. The Marco Polo Bridge incident threatened to end research on Hinamizawa syndrome before. A historically important incident like that couldn't have been created by a killer virus, but it's possible with Hinamizawa syndrome. The elders of the Alphabet Project, a sponsor for our research, can think whatever they want about that. I don't care how they use what I've learned. My purpose is to solve the mysteries of Hinamizawa syndrome and to make people realise just how important this research is. Also, to make people acknowledge my grandfather's accomplishments and achievements. Any military applications were just byproducts of the processes that I didn't care about. The clients will appreciate your accomplishment. Maybe our budget will increase the next term. Passion alone can't keep research going. We need money. We must thank the sponsor for giving us so much funding. For this much money to come from public expenses. Maybe Japan is richer than I thought. The public expenses, but they're expenses that can't be made public. Irie has no idea what I had to go through to get that money. Anyway, our research is going extremely well. We don't know what we'll find out about Hinamizawa syndrome, but I'm sure every mystery will eventually be solved. I can hardly wait. What the syndrome indicates is that humans are simply empty containers, and what we believe to be our will is simply the actions of parasites that live in our brains. If that mystery was solved, it would have a greater impact than anything else in history. That is a truth which nobody wants to believe. This is an achievement my grandfather predicted back during his time. I know now. I know the reason why my grandfather was so fascinated by his work. Okay, well it is slightly early, but we are going to end things off here because I feel like we're at a good story break and also my throat absolutely kills. So I'm going to say thank you very much for watching. It is very, very much appreciated, and I do hope that you enjoyed. I will be streaming Nier Automata on Saturday. We're going to be finishing Route C and seeing what ending I get. Then on Sunday it'll be Destiny 2, where we're going to be continuing with our various exotics and quests and so on and so forth. I've not done any grinding in Destiny yet, so we'll see how that goes. I should possibly just give up on finishing the story for this season, but we'll see. Tuesday will be Final Fantasy XIV, where patch 5.45 will be out. So we're going to be doing the new Bosha stuff and just seeing what else is that. I think it's just Bosha. I'm not leveled up enough to do the new Blue Mage stuff. So we'll be doing Bosha, and then once we finish Bosha, maybe just like hanging around, getting tombstones, that sort of thing. And then next Thursday will be more Higurashi When They Cry, Matsuribayashi, just had to double check what it was there, where we will be continuing to try and solve the problems. So I'm going to say thank you very much for watching. It is very much appreciated, and I do hope that you enjoyed. I hope that you have a wonderful evening. Do be excellent to each other. Take care of yourselves, and I shall see you guys on Saturday.